Welcome to H. Potter. Today we bring you an unforgettable story. What if Harry discovered Dumbledore stole 75 ancient artifacts from the Potter vaults? Loving our content? Smash that like button and join our family by subscribing. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Now, let the story begin. Chapter 1, The Hidden Inventory. Harry's quill scratched against parchment as he half-heartedly scrawled out his Transfiguration essay in the Gryffindor common room. Rain pelted the windows, matching his mood perfectly. Sixth year at Hogwarts was turning out to be just as mental as the last 5, maybe worse. "You're going to snap that quill if you press any harder," Hermione said without looking up from her ancient runes translation. Harry tossed the quill down. "Sorry. Just thinking about Sirius again." Ron glanced up from his Quidditch magazine. "Mate, you can't keep," "I know," Harry cut him off. "But it's been 3 months, and I still haven't sorted through his things. There's a trunk Remus sent over that's just sitting in my dormitory." Hermione closed her book. "Maybe that's what you need, some closure." Harry nodded, pushing back from the table. "Yeah, maybe you're right." Upstairs, Harry pulled the trunk from under his bed. It wasn't particularly large, just a battered leather case with Sirius's initials burned into the side. He flipped the latch, steeling himself for the wave of grief that would inevitably come. Inside lay Sirius's life, condensed into a pathetically small collection of possessions. Photos of the Marauders, a few books, his wand holster, and various trinkets from his time on the run. Harry methodically went through each item, memories washing over him. At the bottom, he found a thick envelope with his name written in Sirius's careless scrawl. Harry tore it open, finding several folded parchments inside. The first was a letter. "Harry, if you're reading this, I've probably gone and done something stupid and got myself killed. Sorry about that. Not really my style to leave peacefully, is it? There's something I should have told you ages ago, but there never seemed to be the right time. When your parents died, I wasn't just named your godfather in the emotional sense. There was a magical binding, a proper wizarding guardianship. This means that despite being locked up, I remained your magical guardian all these years. Why does this matter now? Because when I died, certain magical documents would have been automatically unsealed at Gringotts. One of these is your parents' complete will and testament, not the partial version Dumbledore had executed. I don't know what's in it, Harry. James mentioned something about family artifacts that needed protection, but he never gave details. What I do know is that Dumbledore was very interested in the Potter family vault after your parents died. Too interested. Trust your instincts, Harry. They're good ones. I'm proud of you, kid." Sirius. Harry read the letter twice more, his hands shaking slightly. The other parchments appeared to be legal documents, copies of guardianship papers and something about vault access protocols. He flopped back on his bed, mind racing. A complete will. Family artifacts. And what did Sirius mean about Dumbledore being too interested in his family vault? The door swung open and Ron walked in. "You all right, mate?" "Hermione's getting worried." Harry sat up, passing the letter to Ron. "Read this." Ron's eyes widened as he read. "Blimey, Harry. Think there's something dodgy going on?" "I don't know. But I need to get to Gringotts." "Now?" Ron asked incredulously. "It's nearly curfew, and Dumbledore's got the castle locked down tighter than Azkaban these days." Harry was already pulling his invisibility cloak from his trunk. "That's exactly why I need to go now. If what Sirius implied is true, I can't risk Dumbledore finding out I know." Ron paled slightly but nodded. "Want me and Hermione to come?" "No," Harry said firmly. "Too suspicious if all 3 of us disappear. Cover for me. I'll use the Marauders map and the passage to Honeydukes. I can apparate to London from Hogsmeade. You haven't even passed your test." Harry shrugged. "Never stopped me before." 20 minutes later, Harry was sliding through the one-eyed witch passageway, his mind spinning with possibilities. The familiar adrenaline of breaking rules had returned, but this time it felt different, more personal. This wasn't about saving someone else or stopping Voldemort. This was about his family, his heritage. The Honeyduke cellar was silent and dark. Harry crept up the stairs and through the shop, unlocking the door with a whispered "Alohomra," before slipping out into the night. Hogsmeade was quiet, with only a few patrons still visible through the 3 broomsticks windows. Harry ducked into an alley, concentrated on his destination, and turned on the spot. The crushing sensation of apparition squeezed his lungs, but seconds later he was stumbling into a quiet corner of Diagon Alley. Nearby, Gringotts stood imposing against the night sky, its white marble gleaming in the moonlight. As Harry approached, he was relieved to see lights still burning inside. The bank's doors were flanked by 2 particularly fierce-looking goblin guards who crossed their spears as he neared. "The bank is closed for regular business," one growled. Harry stood his ground. "I need to speak with someone about recently unsealed documents regarding the Potter estate." "It's urgent." The goblins exchanged glances. One disappeared inside, returning moments later. "Follow," he commanded. Harry was led through the empty main hall, their footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Instead of the mine carts that led to the vaults, they took a side corridor lined with offices. The goblin knocked on a heavy wooden door. "Enter," called a voice from inside. The office was small but elegant, with shelves of ledgers lining the walls. Behind an intricately carved desk sat an ancient-looking goblin with spectacles perched on his long nose. "Mr. Potter." "Unexpected." The goblin gestured to a chair. "I am Nagrak, executor of old family accounts. Why do you disturb Gringotts at this hour?" Harry sat down, suddenly feeling foolish for rushing here. "I recently learned that my parents' complete will was unsealed upon the death of my godfather, Sirius Black." Nagrak's eyes narrowed. "Yes. The Black Heir's death triggered several dormant magical protocols. I'd like to see the full will. And any inventory of my family's possessions." "Interesting," Nagrak said slowly. "Most interesting that you ask for this now, after all these years." "What do you mean?" "Mr. Potter, the complete will of James and Lily Potter has been accessible to you since you turned 11. You should have been informed of this upon your first visit to Gringotts." Harry's stomach dropped. "I was never told." "Indeed." Nagrak made a note in a ledger. "Your magical guardian would have been responsible for such disclosure." "Dumbledore," Harry muttered. "Precisely." Nagrak pulled a crystal bell from his desk drawer and rang it once. A younger goblin appeared almost instantly. "Bring the Potter estate files and the hereditary vault inventory records." While they waited, Nagrak fixed Harry with an evaluating stare. "You are aware, Mr. Potter, that Gringotts operates independently of the Ministry of Magic and Hogwarts School?" Harry nodded uncertainly. "Good. Then understand that what transpires in this office will not be reported to your headmaster or any other wizard unless required by magical contract or your explicit permission." The younger goblin returned, struggling under the weight of several boxes and scrolls. He deposited them on the desk and left without a word. Nagrak selected a silver cylinder sealed with the Potter family crest. "Your parents' complete will. I suggest you read it immediately." Harry broke the seal with trembling fingers and unrolled the parchment. It was far longer than he expected, with dense legal language and magical symbols marking various sections. He skimmed through bequests to Remus, Sirius, and even the Longbottoms, until he reached a section that made his breath catch. The Potter family artifacts collection, comprising the 75 hereditary magical items detailed in the attached inventory, shall be held in trust for our son, Harry James Potter. These artifacts are to remain within the secure Potter family vault until Harry reaches magical majority at 17 years of age or emancipation, whichever comes first. Under no circumstances are these artifacts to be removed from Gringotts' protection without our son's explicit consent after reaching the age of magical comprehension, 11 years. We emphasize the dangerous and powerful nature of several of these artifacts. The collection has been in the Potter family for generations, with several pieces dating back to the Peveril line. While we have always used them for the protection of magical Britain, in the wrong hands, some could cause immeasurable harm. A complete inventory and description of each artifact is maintained by the Potter family vault manager at Gringotts. Harry looked up, finding Nagrach already watching him intently. "I need to see the inventory of these artifacts," Harry said, his voice surprisingly steady. Nagrach nodded, sliding an ancient leather-bound ledger across the desk. "This is the master inventory record. It is self-updating and cannot be tampered with by wizard or goblin magic." The ledger was massive, with yellowed pages covered in flowing script. Harry carefully opened it to the first page, which contained a detailed list of numbered artifacts with descriptions and dates of acquisition. Many entries were marked with small runes that Harry couldn't decipher. "What do these symbols mean?" he asked, pointing to a crescent moon shape next to several items. "Those artifacts have been removed from the vault," Nagrach said, his expression unreadable. Harry's heart raced as he began counting the marked entries. The list continued page after page, and with growing horror, he tallied the removed artifacts. 75, he whispered finally. "All 75 artifacts have been taken." "Correct, Mr. Potter." "Who authorized this?" Harry demanded, though he already suspected the answer. Nagrach pulled another ledger from the pile and opened it to a flagged page. "The first removal occurred November 3, 1981, 2 days after your parents' deaths. The last was 3 months ago, shortly before the death of Sirius Black." Harry leaned over to see the signature on the withdrawal forms. Each one bore the same looping signature, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore. How could he do this? Harry asked, anger building in his chest. "You just said these couldn't be removed without my consent." "Indeed." Nagrach's face darkened. "However, Headmaster Dumbledore presented an emergency magical guardianship order from the Wizengamot, granting him temporary authority during the uncertainty following your parents' deaths. This authority should have terminated when you entered the magical world, but..." "But what?" "The headmaster provided documentation indicating you were not yet ready to manage such powerful artifacts. He cited your youth and the return of he who must not be named as justification for continued stewardship." Harry slammed his fist on the desk, rattling the inkwell. "That wasn't his decision to make. These belong to my family." "Gringotts agrees, Mr. Potter." Nagrach's voice was coldest yet. "The bank has repeatedly questioned these removals, especially in recent years, but without your direct countermand as the heir, our options were limited by the treaties governing wizard-goblin relations." Harry took a deep breath, trying to control his temper. "What exactly did he take? What are these artifacts? Perhaps you should see for yourself." Nagrach flipped through the ledger to a detailed section with illustrations. "The Potter collection is one of the most significant private assemblages of magical artifacts in Britain. It includes weapons, protective devices, magical foci, and items of historical significance." Harry began reading through the descriptions, his amazement growing with each entry. "The Peveril compass detects dark magic within a 5-mile radius. Can identify the specific nature of dark enchantments when held by a true Peveril descendant. Godric's gauntlet, right hand, enhances shield charms cast by the wearer. Family legend claims it was gifted to Linfred Potter by Godric Gryffindor himself. Merlin's mirror shard, one of 7 known fragments. Shows the truth behind illusions and can allegedly peer through certain types of magical concealment." The list went on, each item more incredible than the last. Some were powerful weapons, others tools of healing or protection. Many had notes indicating they had been used by Potters throughout history to defend magical Britain during times of crisis. "These have been in my family for generations," Harry murmured, turning pages slowly. "And Dumbledore just took them." Without your knowledge or consent, yes. Negrak hesitated, then added, there is a possibility for reclamation, however. Harry looked up sharply. How? As the last Potter, you can issue a family recall. It's an ancient magic tied to bloodlines that summons hereditary possessions back to their rightful owner. The magic bypasses most wards and protections, though powerful countermeasures could potentially block or delay the return of certain items. Would Dumbledore know if I did this? He would know something had happened, but not necessarily what or who was responsible. The recall magic is subtle, it doesn't announce itself with flashes and bangs. Harry considered this, running a hand through his hair. What about the legal side? Could he claim he had the right to take these? His claim rests on his position as your magical guardian, which he should have relinquished years ago. Negrak pulled another document from the pile. However, there is a complication. It appears Headmaster Dumbledore filed paperwork with the Ministry claiming that your parents verbally amended their will during the war, and trusting him with the safekeeping of family artifacts. That's ridiculous! Harry exclaimed. If my parents wanted that, they would have put it in their will. Precisely our position as well, Mr. Potter. Such claims require substantial evidence, which has never been provided. However, the headmaster's political influence has discouraged robust investigation. Harry stood and paced the small office, mind racing. Everything he thought he knew about Dumbledore was being called into question. The man he trusted, who claimed to care about him, had systematically looted his family heritage while keeping him in the dark. I want everything back, Harry said finally, returning to his chair. Every single artifact. How do I perform this recall? Negrak seemed pleased with Harry's decision. The ritual is straightforward but requires precise execution. You will need to be within a secure location connected to your bloodline. The Potter family vault would be ideal. The incantation must be spoken with intent while focusing on the items you wish to reclaim. Can we do it now? If you wish. However, I would advise caution. Recalling all 75 artifacts simultaneously could create a magical disturbance that would certainly alert the headmaster. Harry frowned. What do you suggest? A gradual approach. Recall the items in smaller batches over several days or weeks. Begin with less powerful artifacts to test the process and gauge any response. Negrak's thin lips curved into what might have been a smile. Additionally, this would give you time to properly examine and understand each artifact as it returns. Harry nodded slowly. That makes sense. But I don't have weeks. I snuck out of Hogwarts tonight, and I can't keep coming back without raising suspicion. There are alternatives. The Potter family owns several properties that could serve as receiving points for the recalled items. As your family's account manager, I could arrange for secure transportation of the artifacts to whichever location you designate. I own properties? Harry asked, momentarily distracted. Negrak raised an eyebrow. Indeed. The complete Potter holdings include 3 residences in Britain and 1 in France, in addition to various investments and business interests. This information should also have been disclosed to you years ago. Harry shook his head in disbelief. Anything else about my family that's been kept from me? Almost certainly, Negrak replied dryly. Shall we proceed with the first recall? Harry nodded, his resolve hardening. Yes. But first, I need to understand exactly what Dumbledore has been doing with these artifacts. Has he been using them? Studying them? Keeping them locked away? We cannot know for certain. However, Negrak pulled a thin file from beneath the ledgers. Gringotts maintains a network of contacts throughout magical Britain. Occasionally, reports of unusual magical signatures are brought to our attention, particularly when they align with items under our protection. He handed Harry several sheets of parchment. These are incidents where magical energies matching Potter artifacts were detected. I cannot confirm these were your family's items being used, but the correlation is suggestive. Harry skimmed the reports, which detailed unusual magical occurrences across Britain over the past 15 years. Many were connected to Hogwarts or locations associated with the Order of the Phoenix. "He's been using them all along," Harry muttered. "For his fight against Voldemort." "So it would appear," Negrak agreed. "Though whether his intentions align with what your parents would have wished remains questionable." Harry thought back to everything he knew about Dumbledore. The headmaster had always maintained that his actions were for the greater good, a phrase that now seemed far more ominous. "Let's start the recall," Harry said firmly. "I want to begin with these." He pointed to several items that appeared in multiple incident reports, including the Peveril compass and something called the Gryffindor prism. "A wise selection. Shall we proceed to your vault?" The journey to the depths of Gringotts was a blur for Harry. The cart ride seemed to last much longer than he remembered, plunging deeper into the caverns beneath London. Finally, they arrived at a massive door bearing the Potter crest, a shield with a stag and doe facing each other. "Place your hand on the crest, Mr. Potter," Negrak instructed. Harry did as he was told. The crest glowed briefly, and the massive door swung silently open. Unlike his trust vault, which contained mainly coins, the Potter family vault was enormous, a cavern filled with furniture, chests, weapons, and countless other items. At the center stood an empty display case with 75 numbered pedestals. The artifact collection was housed here, Negrak explained. Each item had its specific place, magically attuned to its properties. Harry approached the empty display, anger rekindled at the visual evidence of Dumbledore's theft. "What do I need to do?" Negrak handed him a small silver knife. 3 drops of blood on the central pedestal, then state your full name and declare your intent to recall your family's possessions. Harry pricked his finger without hesitation and allowed 3 drops to fall onto the ancient stone. "I, Harry James Potter, heir to the Potter family, recall what is rightfully mine by blood and magic." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the pedestals began to glow with a soft golden light, pulsing like a heartbeat. "Focus on the specific items you wish to recall first," Negrak instructed quietly. Harry closed his eyes, picturing the Peveril compass and Gryffindor prism as described in the ledger. He felt a strange tugging sensation, as if invisible threads were extending from his body out into the world. The air in the vault suddenly rippled, and with a soft chime, 2 objects materialized on their respective pedestals. The compass was a beautiful bronze device with celestial markings and a needle of what appeared to be phoenix feather. The prism was a perfectly clear crystal pyramid that seemed to capture and amplify the light around it. "It worked," Harry breathed. "Indeed." Negrak examined the returned artifacts without touching them. "And quite smoothly. These particular items were likely not under heavy protection." Harry reached out hesitantly toward the compass. "You may handle them," Negrak assured him. "They are attuned to your bloodline and will respond to your touch." The compass felt warm in Harry's palm, vibrating slightly as if eager to be used. When he held the prism in his other hand, the 2 artifacts seemed to resonate with each other, creating a strange harmony he could feel rather than hear. "What now?" Harry asked. "You have several options. You could continue recalling items tonight, arrange for secure transport of these first artifacts, or return them to the vault temporarily while you consider your next steps." Harry thought for a moment. "I can't take these back to Hogwarts, not yet. But I don't want to leave them here either, in case Dumbledore somehow finds out what I've done." "There is another possibility," Negrak suggested. The Potter family maintained a hidden property specifically for the study and use of certain artifacts. Its location is known only to Gringotts and the Potter heir. "Where is it?" "A small island off the Welsh coast, unplottable and heavily warded. It contains a workshop, library, and living quarters established by your great-grandfather, Fleamont Potter." Harry's eyes widened. "That's perfect. Can you arrange for these artifacts to be taken there?" "Certainly. I can also provide you with a port key to access the property when needed." "Do it," Harry said firmly. And I want to recall more items, 10 in total tonight. Over the next hour, Harry successfully recalled 8 more artifacts. Each arrival filled him with a complex mixture of emotions, pride in his family's legacy, anger at Dumbledore's betrayal, and growing excitement about the power these items represented. The recalled items included a pair of enchanted daggers that could cut through any magical barrier, a pendant that granted temporary invisibility without a cloak, and several other tools that seemed designed for protection rather than attack. One item, however, refused to appear despite multiple attempts, a staff called Merlin's Whisper that the inventory described as capable of amplifying the bearer's magical core by tenfold for brief periods. It appears this artifact is being actively prevented from returning, Negrak observed. It is among the most powerful in your collection and likely under specific containment. Harry frowned. Dumbledore must be using it for something important. Or fears its power in another's hands, Negrak added. Including yours. Dawn was approaching by the time they returned to Negrak's office. The goblin provided Harry with a small stone carved with the Potter crest, a portkey to the hidden property, and assured him that the recalled artifacts would be transferred there within hours. What you've begun tonight has significant implications, Mr. Potter, Negrak said as Harry prepared to leave. The headmaster will not relinquish control easily, especially over the more powerful artifacts. I know, Harry replied grimly. But they're mine. My family's legacy. Indeed. Negrak handed him a small leather journal. This contains detailed information about each artifact in the Potter collection, including their properties and historical uses. I suggest you study it carefully before attempting to use any of them. Harry slipped the journal into his pocket. Thank you for your help. I'll be back soon to continue the recalls. One last thing, Mr. Potter. Negrak fixed him with a penetrating stare. Be cautious about whom you trust with this knowledge. The artifacts your family accumulated over centuries have tremendous value, not just monetary, but in terms of power and influence. Many would kill to possess even one of them. Harry nodded solemnly. I understand. Good hunting, Heir Potter, Negrak said with what might have been respect in his voice. May your enemies tremble at your approach. The return to Hogwarts proved more challenging than the departure. Dawn was breaking as Harry apparat back to Hogsmeade, and the village was beginning to stir. He barely made it through Honeydukes before the owners came down to open shop, and the passage back to Hogwarts seemed twice as long as before. Exhausted but mind still racing, Harry emerged from behind the one-eyed witch statue to find the corridor empty. He checked the Marauder's map and froze. Dumbledore was pacing in his office, and Filch was patrolling nearby. Harry slipped under his invisibility cloak and made his way carefully back to Gryffindor Tower, avoiding Filch by seconds. The fat lady grumbled about being woken so early but swung open at the password. The common room was empty except for Hermione, who had fallen asleep in an armchair by the dying fire, a book open in her lap. She jerked awake as the portrait closed. Harry, she called softly, peering around the apparently empty room. Harry pulled off the cloak. I'm here. Thank goodness. She jumped up, relief and anger battling on her face. Where have you been? Ron told me you went to Gringotts, but that was hours ago. Keep your voice down, Harry whispered, sinking into a chair. It's complicated. Hermione sat opposite him, her expression shifting to concern as she took in his appearance. You look terrible. What happened? Harry hesitated. Negrak's warning about trusting others echoed in his mind, but this was Hermione, she had stood by him through everything. Dumbledore's been stealing from me, he said finally. From my family. Hermione's eyes widened. What? That can't be right. It is. Harry pulled out Negrak's journal. My family had a collection of powerful magical artifacts, 75 of them. Dumbledore took them all after my parents died, claiming it was for safekeeping, but he never told me about them. Never intended to give them back. There must be some explanation, Hermione insisted. Dumbledore wouldn't just steal, he did, Hermione. Harry's voice hardened. I saw the records. He's been using them for years, for the Order, for fighting Voldemort, who knows what else. But they're mine. My heritage. Hermione bit her lip, clearly struggling with this revelation. What did you do? I started taking them back. Harry couldn't keep a note of satisfaction from his voice. There's this ritual, a family recall. I managed to get 10 artifacts back tonight. They're being moved to a safe location. Oh, Harry. Hermione looked worried. Dumbledore will know they're missing. Good, Harry said firmly. Maybe then he'll explain why he thought it was okay to take them in the first place. This is dangerous, Hermione warned. If these artifacts are as powerful as you say, they are. Look. Harry opened the journal to pages describing the items he'd recalled. Hermione scanned the text, her academic interest clearly piqued despite her concerns. This is incredible, she admitted. Some of these capabilities shouldn't even be possible according to modern magical theory. Exactly. And Dumbledore's been hoarding them all this time, while I was left with nothing of my family except my invisibility cloak. A thought suddenly struck Harry. Wait, my cloak. It must have been part of the collection too. He flipped through the journal until he found the entry, Invisibility Cloak of Ignotus Peverell. Unlike common invisibility cloaks, this artifact never fades or deteriorates. It completely conceals the wearer from all forms of magical detection, including death itself according to family legend. One of 3 legendary Hallows. That's why he gave it back to me for Christmas in first year, Harry realized. He had taken it with the other artifacts but decided to return just this one. Probably thought it would keep me happy while he kept the rest. Hermione looked troubled. Harry, I understand why you're angry, but please be careful. Dumbledore must have had reasons, don't defend him, Harry snapped. Not until you've heard his explanation. That's just it, shouldn't you confront him directly? Ask why he took these items. Harry shook his head. Not yet. I need to understand what I'm dealing with first. These artifacts have powers I don't fully understand, and Dumbledore's been using them for decades. I need to level the playing field before I face him. The portrait hole swung open, and Ron stumbled in, looking sleepy and worried. His face brightened when he saw Harry. You made it back. Bloody hell, mate, you had us worried. He dropped onto the couch. Did you find anything? Harry exchanged glances with Hermione. Yes. A lot, actually. He gave Ron a condensed version of what he'd discovered, watching his friend's expression shift from confusion to disbelief to anger. That's theft, that is. Ron sputtered when Harry finished. And he's supposed to be the leader of the light. Bloody hypocrite. Ron. Hermione scolded, though with less conviction than usual. What? It's true. If anyone else had nicked family heirlooms, they'd be in Azkaban. Ron turned back to Harry. So what's the plan? You're getting them all back, right? That's the idea, Harry confirmed. But I need to be smart about it. Dumbledore doesn't know I know yet, and I want to keep it that way as long as possible. You'll need help, Ron said firmly. We're with you, right, Hermione? She hesitated only briefly before nodding. Of course we are. But we need to research these artifacts properly before using them. Some of them sound incredibly dangerous. That's where you come in, Harry said with a tired smile. Research expert, remember? Hermione rolled her eyes but couldn't hide a pleased expression. I'll need access to that journal. And possibly the restricted section. Take it for now, Harry said, handing her Nagrax's journal. But be careful where you read it. I don't want anyone else finding out. Ron yawned hugely. So what's next? Sleep, for one thing, Harry said, suddenly aware of his own exhaustion. Then we need to figure out how I can get away to continue the recalls without Dumbledore noticing. The next Hogsmeade weekend is in 2 weeks, Hermione suggested. That would be the easiest time to slip away. Too long, Harry shook his head. I need to get more artifacts back sooner. Dumbledore could realize what's happening any day. They fell silent, considering options. Finally, Ron spoke up. What about Luna? Harry and Hermione looked at him in surprise. Luna Lovegood? Hermione clarified. Yeah. She's always talking about these weird creatures and conspiracy theories, right? But sometimes she knows things she shouldn't. And she's not afraid to believe the unbelievable. Ron shrugged. Plus, she's got that outsider perspective. Might see something we're missing. Harry considered this. That's actually brilliant, Ron. Don't sound so surprised, Ron grumbled, though he looked pleased. I'll talk to her today, Harry decided. And Neville too. His family has history with mine, and I trust him. Hermione nodded. A small group is smart. But Harry, eventually Dumbledore will figure out what's happening. I know. And when he does. Harry's expression hardened. I'll be ready for him. Breakfast in the Great Hall that morning was a surreal experience. Harry picked at his toast, stealing glances at the staff table where Dumbledore sat chatting amicably with Professor Flitwick. The headmaster looked exactly as he always did, benevolent, slightly eccentric, with twinkling eyes and a gentle smile. How could this be the same man who had systematically looted Harry's family heritage? He's not even worried, Harry muttered to Ron. Doesn't suspect a thing. Good, Ron replied through a mouthful of sausage. Gives us time to plan. Hermione had her nose buried in Nagrac's journal, cleverly disguised with a cover from Advanced Arithmancy Studies, to deter curious onlookers. This is fascinating, she whispered. The Peveril compass doesn't just detect dark magic, it can identify specific magical signatures. You could use it to track individual Death Eaters. Harry nodded absently, his attention drawn to the Ravenclaw table where Luna sat alone, reading the Quibbler upside down as usual. I'm going to talk to Luna now, he decided. Be right back. He made his way across the hall, ignoring the curious glances from other students. Luna looked up as he approached, her protuberant eyes seeming to see right through him. Hello, Harry Potter, she said dreamily. You're surrounded by Raxperts this morning. Been making important decisions, have you? Harry blinked, momentarily thrown off balance. Yeah, actually. Luna, can I talk to you somewhere private? It's important. Luna tilted her head curiously. Is it about the things that were taken from you? Harry stared at her. How did you? Oh, I didn't know specifically, Luna said airily, folding her newspaper. But you have the aura of someone who's discovered a theft. My father says it's quite distinctive, like a purple haze with golden sparks. Right, Harry said slowly. Well, you're not wrong. Can you meet me by the Black Lake after breakfast? Bring Neville if you see him. Luna nodded seriously. He's just arrived. I'll tell him. Harry returned to the Gryffindor table, shaking his head in amazement. She already knows something's up. Said I have the aura of someone who's discovered a theft. Ron snorted. Mental, but useful. I found something else, Hermione said in a low voice. There's a mention here of artifacts working in conjunction with each other. Apparently, certain combinations create effects greater than the sum of their parts. Like what? Harry asked. It doesn't give specifics, just warns that experimentation should be conducted cautiously. Hermione looked worried. Harry, some of these artifacts sound almost sentient. They have affinities for certain types of magic and preferences in their wielders. All the more reason to get them back, Harry said firmly. If they're connected to my family, they should respond to me, right? According to this, yes. But, she was interrupted by the arrival of the morning mail. Hundreds of owls swooped into the great hall, dropping packages and letters to students below. No owl came for Harry, but he noticed a magnificent eagle owl deliver a small package to Dumbledore. The headmaster opened it carefully, removing what appeared to be a small silver instrument. As Harry watched, Dumbledore's expression changed from curiosity to concern. He examined the device closely, then glanced around the hall, his gaze pausing briefly on Harry before moving on. "He knows," Harry whispered. "Something's tipped him off." Hermione followed his gaze. "The artifacts you recalled must have triggered some kind of alert. We need to move faster," Harry decided. "Tonight, I'm going back to Gringotts." "That's too risky," Hermione protested. "He'll be watching now. Which is why I need to act before he can put more protections in place." Harry stood up abruptly. "Come on, we need to talk to Luna and Neville." They found Luna and Neville already waiting by the lake, sitting on a flat rock near the water's edge. Luna was explaining something about freshwater plimpies to a politely bewildered Neville. "Harry!" Neville called, looking relieved at the interruption. "Luna said you wanted to talk to us." Harry nodded, checking to make sure they were alone before sitting down. "What I'm about to tell you needs to stay completely secret. It could be dangerous if the wrong people find out." Neville straightened, his expression becoming serious. "We won't tell anyone." "The Nargles couldn't drag it from me," Luna agreed solemnly. Harry took a deep breath and began explaining what he'd discovered about the Potter artifacts and Dumbledore's theft. Neville's face grew increasingly shocked, while Luna simply nodded as if confirming something she'd long suspected. "My gran always said the Potters were an ancient family with powerful heirlooms," Neville said when Harry finished. "But 75 artifacts. That's like a museum collection." "The Lovegood family has several artifacts too," Luna chimed in. "Nothing so extensive, but Daddy keeps them hidden from the Ministry. He says powerful magical objects have a way of disappearing when officials learn about them." "Exactly," Harry said grimly. "Dumbledore's been using the same justification, keeping them safe from Voldemort or the Ministry or whoever. But they're mine. My connection to my family." "So you're reclaiming them," Luna stated. "Good. Family magic should remain with family." "I need your help," Harry admitted. "I've got 10 back so far, but there are 65 more. And now Dumbledore suspects something. What can we do?" Neville asked without hesitation. "I need to get out of the castle again tonight, back to Gringotts. Dumbledore will be watching me, so I need distractions." Luna's eyes lit up. "A distraction? I'm quite good at those." "Nothing too obvious," Harry cautioned. "Just something to keep attention away from my absence for a few hours." "Leave it to us," Neville said with newfound confidence. "Luna and I can create enough minor chaos to keep the staff busy without causing real trouble. And while you're gone, we can begin researching the artifacts you've already recovered," Luna suggested. "Understanding their powers will be crucial." Harry hesitated, then nodded. "Hermione has the journal with all the information. Maybe you could work with her in the library." Luna smiled. "Hermione and I will get along splendidly once she realizes I'm not completely delusional." "Only partially." Neville chuckled, then grew serious again. "Harry, what happens when Dumbledore confronts you directly?" "He will, you know." "I know," Harry said quietly. "But by then, I hope to have enough of my family's power back that he'll have to deal with me as an equal, not as a student he can manipulate." "The Longbottoms stood with the Potters for centuries," Neville said firmly. "That hasn't changed." Luna nodded. "The Lovegoods are newer allies, but no less loyal." For the first time since discovering the theft, Harry felt a surge of genuine hope. He wasn't alone in this fight. "Thank you," he said simply. "Both of you." The rest of the day passed in a blur of classes and whispered planning sessions. In Transfiguration, Harry found it nearly impossible to concentrate, earning a disapproving look from Professor McGonagall when his teacup stubbornly refused to transform into a tortoise. "Your mind seems elsewhere today, Mr. Potter," she commented as she passed his desk. "Sorry, Professor," he muttered. "Didn't sleep well." Her expression softened slightly. "See me after class." When the bell rang, Harry approached her desk with apprehension. McGonagall had always been fair but strict, and he wondered if she somehow knew about his nighttime excursion. "Mr. Potter," she began once the classroom had emptied, "I couldn't help but notice that the headmaster seems unusually interested in your activities today." Harry tensed. "Oh. He asked several staff members to report any unusual behavior on your part." She fixed him with a penetrating stare. "Would you care to explain what might have prompted such scrutiny?" Harry hesitated. McGonagall had always been supportive, but she was also fiercely loyal to Dumbledore. "I'm not sure, Professor," he lied. "Maybe he's worried about Voldemort's connection to me again." McGonagall's lips thinned. "I see. Well, whatever is happening, I trust you will exercise caution, Potter. These are dangerous times." "Yes, Professor." As he turned to leave, she added, "And Potter, remember that not everything is as black and white as it might appear. Even the wisest among us can make questionable decisions when they believe the ends justify the means." Harry froze, turning back slowly. "What do you know, Professor?" McGonagall sighed. "Only that Albus Dumbledore is a great wizard with the weight of the world on his shoulders. His methods are not always transparent, even to those of us who have worked alongside him for decades." "Is that supposed to excuse theft?" Harry asked, unable to keep the bitterness from his voice. A flash of surprise crossed McGonagall's face. "I cannot speak to specific actions without knowing details, Potter. But I will say this, if you believe yourself wronged, seek understanding before revenge. There may be factors you are unaware of." "Like what?" Harry challenged. "What could justify taking everything my family left me?" "That," McGonagall said quietly, "is a question only Albus can answer." Harry left the classroom more confused than ever. Was McGonagall suggesting there might be legitimate reasons for Dumbledore's actions? Or was she simply being loyal to her longtime colleague? The encounter left Harry with a nagging doubt that he pushed aside as he headed to his next class. There would be time for questions later. Tonight was about action. Dinner that evening was a tense affair. Dumbledore was absent from the staff table, which only heightened Harry's anxiety. Where was he? Checking on the artifacts? Placing additional protections? "Relax," Hermione whispered. "You're being too obvious." Harry forced himself to eat normally, though each bite tasted like ash. Across the hall, Luna caught his eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod. The distraction was set. As dessert appeared on the tables, a commotion erupted at the Slytherin table. Draco Malfoy jumped to his feet, frantically batting at his robes, which appeared to be crawling with tiny, luminous insects. "Get them off," he shrieked, drawing attention from throughout the hall. Within seconds, similar outbreaks occurred at other tables. Students leapt up, swatting at glowing creatures that seemed to be emerging from the woodwork. "Luminescent lattice bugs," Luna announced loudly, standing on the Ravenclaw bench. "They're attracted to secrets and lies. The more you've told, the more they swarm." Predictably, this sent many students into a panic, particularly those with guilty consciences. Professor Flitwick tried to restore order while Professor Sprout and Slughorn attempted to contain the insects. In the chaos, Harry slipped away from the Gryffindor table and out of the Great Hall. Ron and Hermione would claim he'd gone to the hospital wing, overwhelmed by the commotion due to his lack of sleep. Harry raced to the One-Eyed Witch passage, heart pounding. The map showed Filch heading toward the Great Hall and Dumbledore still absent from the castle grounds. Perfect. The journey to Gringotts was faster this time, fueled by urgency and growing confidence. Nagrack seemed unsurprised by his return, merely raising an eyebrow as Harry entered his office. Potter. I anticipated we might see you again soon. Your first recall did not go unnoticed. I know, Harry said grimly. Dumbledore has some kind of detection device. He knows something's happening but not what or who's responsible yet. Then we must accelerate our timeline, Negrak decided, leading Harry back to the vaults. How many artifacts do you wish to recall tonight? As many as possible, Harry replied. Starting with the most powerful ones. Negrak looked concerned. A mass recall will certainly trigger stronger alerts. The headmaster will know exactly what is happening. Let him, Harry said with newfound determination. These artifacts belong to me, and it's time he remembered that. The goblin studied him for a moment, then nodded. Very well. But I suggest we employ additional measures to protect you upon your return to Hogwarts. In the Potter vault, Harry didn't hesitate. He sliced his palm more deeply this time, allowing blood to flow freely onto the central pedestal. I, Harry James Potter, heir to the House of Potter, demand the return of all artifacts stolen from my family. By blood and by right, I call them home. The magic that surged through the vault was unlike anything Harry had experienced, wild and ancient, responding to his anger and determination. The pedestals glowed not with gentle golden light but with fierce crimson energy that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. One by one, artifacts began materializing, faster than the previous night, almost violently ripping through whatever protections had been placed on them. Weapons, jewelry, books, and arcane devices appeared in rapid succession, filling the once empty display case. Harry felt each arrival like a physical jolt, a piece of his heritage reconnecting with his magical core. Some artifacts seemed to sing as they returned, while others arrived with concussive force that shook the vault. 27, Negrak counted as the arrivals finally slowed. An impressive recall, especially given the likely protections. Harry surveyed the newly returned items with satisfaction, though he noted many pedestals remained empty. What about the others? Some may be under Fidelius charms or similar concealment magic that even the family recall cannot fully overcome, Negrak explained. Others may be actively in use, making them more resistant to the summons. Can you have these transferred to the island property? Already arranged, Negrak confirmed. But you should select one or two to take with you now. I suspect you may need protection sooner rather than later. Harry examined the artifacts, remembering descriptions from the journal. Finally, he selected two, a ring set with a black stone that supposedly protected against mental intrusion, and a small silver whistle that could temporarily disrupt any spell when blown. Wise choices, Negrak commented. The Mind Shield ring will be particularly useful against a legilimens of Dumbledore's caliber. Harry slipped the ring onto his finger, feeling a cool sensation spread through his mind. It was subtle but unmistakable, a barrier between his thoughts and the outside world. Will he be able to tell I'm wearing it? Harry asked. Not unless he actively attempts to penetrate your mind, Negrak assured him. The protection is passive until challenged. Harry tucked the whistle into his pocket. Thank you for everything, Negrak. I have a feeling things are going to get complicated when I return to Hogwarts. Indeed. The goblin handed him a small, ornate key. This will give you direct access to the island property from any fire connected to the Flu network. Simply cast the key into the flames before stepping through and state Potter Haven. Harry pocketed the key gratefully. One more thing, can you tell me which artifacts are still missing? The most important ones? Negrak consulted the inventory ledger. 38 artifacts remain unrecovered. Among the most significant are Merlin's Whisper, the staff you attempted to recall previously, the Peveril Grimoire, containing family spells dating back centuries, and something called the Founder's Nexus, a device supposedly created by all 4 Hogwarts founders. Dumbledore must have those under heavy protection, Harry mused. Or they're at Hogwarts itself. A distinct possibility, Negrak agreed. Many ancient families stored their most valuable artifacts at Hogwarts during times of unrest. The castle's protections are formidable. Harry's mind raced with possibilities. So some of my family's artifacts might have been at Hogwarts all along. Right under my nose. It would be consistent with what we know of Dumbledore's methods, hiding things in plain sight while maintaining control. The implications were staggering. Harry had spent 6 years at Hogwarts, potentially surrounded by his family's legacy without knowing it. I need to get back, he decided. If Dumbledore realizes how many artifacts I've recalled tonight, he'll be waiting for me. Harry's prediction proved accurate. The moment he emerged from the One-Eyed Witch passage, he knew something was wrong. The corridor was empty, but there was a tension in the air, a magical pressure that hadn't been there before. He consulted the Marauder's map and felt his stomach drop. Dumbledore was in his office, but McGonagall, Snape, and Filch were all converging on corridors nearby. They were searching for him. Harry slipped on his invisibility cloak and moved carefully toward Gryffindor Tower. He needed to reach Ron and Hermione, to warn them that things had escalated. He was halfway there when he rounded a corner and nearly collided with Snape, who was standing perfectly still in the middle of the corridor, wand drawn. "I know you're there, Potter," Snape said softly. "Your disillusionment charm may fool others, but not me." Harry froze. He wasn't using a disillusionment charm, he was under his invisibility cloak. Could Snape see through it somehow? "The headmaster requires your presence," Snape continued when Harry didn't respond. "Immediately." Harry remained silent, hardly daring to breathe. Snape was bluffing, he had to be. "Very well," Snape sighed. "Hominum revelio." The spell washed over Harry but seemed to slide around him rather than revealing his position. The mind shield ring on his finger grew momentarily warm, and Harry realized it was offering protection beyond just mental intrusions. Snape frowned, casting several more detection spells that similarly failed. Finally, he spoke again, his voice lower and surprisingly less hostile. "Potter, if you can hear me, consider your position carefully. The headmaster knows what you've done. The artifacts you've taken, some are dangerous beyond your comprehension. This isn't a simple matter of ownership." Harry still didn't respond, but his mind was racing. Snape sounded almost concerned. "Whatever you believe about the headmaster's motives, rushing headlong into ancient magic without preparation is foolishness even by your standards," Snape continued. "At least hear what he has to say before you make decisions that cannot be undone." With that, Snape turned and strode away, his robes billowing behind him. Harry waited until he was gone before consulting the map again. The path to Gryffindor Tower was temporarily clear, but Dumbledore had left his office and was now heading for the 7th floor. Making a split-second decision, Harry changed direction. If Dumbledore was searching for him, Gryffindor Tower would be watched. He needed somewhere else to regroup and plan. The Room of Requirement was his best option. He made his way there quickly, avoiding patrols with the map's help. As he approached the blank wall opposite the tapestry of Barnabas the Barmy, he concentrated hard. "I need a place to hide. I need a place where Dumbledore can't find me. I need a safe space to plan my next move." The door materialized, and Harry slipped inside to find a cozy room with a fireplace, comfortable chairs, and bookshelves lining the walls. To his surprise, Luna, Neville, Ron, and Hermione were already there, looking relieved at his arrival. "Harry!" Hermione exclaimed as he pulled off the cloak. "Thank goodness. How did you know I'd come here?" Harry asked, amazed. "We didn't," Ron admitted. "We just needed somewhere to hide after Dumbledore figured out we were involved in your disappearance." Luna suggested the room. "The whole castle is in uproar," Neville explained. After the bug distraction, Dumbledore returned and went straight to his office. 10 minutes later, he came storming out looking, well, scary. "He knows," Harry confirmed grimly. "I recalled 27 more artifacts tonight. There's no way he missed that." Luna studied him curiously. "You're different. Your aura has changed." Harry touched the mind shield ring self-consciously. I brought back a couple of items with me. Protection. Smart, Ron said. So what now? Dumbledore's probably got every exit watched. Harry pulled out the fleur key Negrak had given him. We have an escape route if needed. This key can take us to a hidden Potter property. But we can't just run away. Hermione protested. We have classes, exams, this is bigger than school, Hermione, Harry interrupted. Dumbledore stole from me for years. Who knows what else he's been hiding? A tense silence fell over the group. Finally, Luna spoke. I think Harry should confront Dumbledore directly, she said dreamily. But on his own terms, not as a student called to the headmaster's office. That's mental, Ron argued. Dumbledore's the most powerful wizard alive. Not without my family's artifacts, he's not, Harry said slowly, warming to Luna's suggestion. Maybe that's exactly what I need to do, face him as an equal, not a student. How? Neville asked. He's still the headmaster. Harry thought for a moment. I need more leverage. More of the artifacts. And I need to understand what he's been using them for all these years. Hermione sat forward eagerly. I've been researching that. The journal mentions that many Potter artifacts were created or modified specifically for the defense of Hogwarts. Your ancestors were protectors of the school for generations. That's it. Harry exclaimed. Dumbledore didn't just take them for power, he's been using them the way my family always did, to protect Hogwarts. But why not tell you? Ron asked. Why the secrecy? Control, Neville said quietly, surprising everyone. Gran always says Dumbledore needs to control every variable, every piece on the board. Sharing power isn't his way. Harry nodded slowly. I think you're right. And that's his weakness. He's so used to being the only one with all the information, the only one making decisions. So we change the game, Luna suggested. Instead of hiding, make him come to you. A plan began forming in Harry's mind, risky, bold, but potentially game-changing. I need to send a message, he decided. Not just to Dumbledore, but to everyone. It's time the wizarding world remembered that the Potters weren't just victims in this war, we were powers in our own right. Ron grinned. Now you're talking. What's the plan? First, we need to secure the artifacts I've already recovered. Then we need to find the ones still hidden at Hogwarts. Harry's expression hardened with determination. And then, I'm going to make Albus Dumbledore explain himself, not to a student, but to the last Potter. As his friends gathered around to help plan, Harry felt a strange sense of destiny settling on his shoulders. For the first time, he was taking control of his own legacy, stepping out of the shadows of those who had shaped his life without his knowledge or consent. Whatever came next, he would face it not as the boy who lived, but as Harry Potter, heir to an ancient and powerful family that had been denied its rightful place for too long. The confrontation with Dumbledore was inevitable now. But when it came, Harry would be ready. Chapter 2, Reclaiming Heritage. The fire crackled in the hearth as Harry stood at the stone basin in the center of the room, examining the swirling silvery contents. After 3 days hiding in what they now called Potter Haven, he discovered the property contained far more than just a safe house. It was a fortress disguised as a cottage, with an extensive library, workshop, and this, a pensive room where generations of Potters had stored their memories. Find anything useful? Ron asked, entering with a mug of tea that he handed to Harry. Loads. Harry gestured at the labeled memory vials arranged on the shelves. My great-grandfather Fleamont was obsessed with documenting everything about the family artifacts. I've been watching his memories of creating some of them. Ron peered into the pensieve. Weird to think your family was doing all this amazing magic for centuries and nobody told you. That's what gets me, Harry said, sipping the tea. Not just Dumbledore, nobody ever mentioned that the Potters were artifact creators. It's like my entire heritage was erased. The door opened again, and Hermione hurried in, clutching several scrolls. "I've finished cross-referencing the artifact inventory with historical records. You're not going to believe what I found." Harry and Ron followed her back to the main room where Luna and Neville were already poring over maps spread across a large table. The cottage's interior was magically expanded, with multiple rooms branching off from the central living area. Though they'd only been here 3 days, it already felt more like home to Harry than Privet Drive ever had. "The artifacts aren't random collectibles," Hermione explained, unrolling a timeline she'd created. "They're a coordinated defense system developed by the Potter family over generations. Look," she pointed to various points on the timeline, clusters of artifacts created during major magical conflicts, Grindelwald's rise, the Goblin rebellions, even the founding of Hogwarts. "My family was creating weapons?" Harry asked, uncomfortable with the idea. "Not just weapons," Luna interjected, looking up from an ancient text. "Protections. Healings. Knowledge preservation." She tapped the book. "The Potter family motto, Custodes Lucas, Guardians of the Light." Neville nodded. "That tracks with what Gran always said about your family. The Potters weren't politicians or celebrities, but when magical Britain was in danger, they were always there, providing magical support." Harry absorbed this information, feeling a strange mix of pride and responsibility. "So these artifacts were created to protect people?" "Exactly," Hermione confirmed. "And from what I can tell, Dumbledore has been using them for exactly that purpose, just without your knowledge or permission." "Still doesn't make it right," Ron grumbled. "No, it doesn't," Harry agreed. "But it helps me understand why." He turned to the map they'd been marking. "How many artifacts have we located so far?" 12 more beyond what's already here," Neville replied, pointing to markers on the map. "Based on the magical signatures Hermione detected. They're scattered all over Britain, mostly at sites connected to the Order of the Phoenix." "And there's something else," Luna added, her normally dreamy voice unusually serious. "My father received a strange letter yesterday from an anonymous source. It mentioned the Potter collection specifically." Harry tensed. "What did it say?" Luna pulled a piece of parchment from her pocket. "Just this: the collection was divided for a reason. When united, it awakens. Tell Potter to beware the architect's design." "The architect?" Ron echoed. "Who's that?" "No idea," Hermione admitted, looking frustrated at the lack of clear information. "I haven't found any reference to an architect in any of the Potter records." Harry stared at the letter. "Whoever sent this knows what we're doing. And they're trying to warn us. Or manipulate us," Neville suggested. "It could be Dumbledore, trying to scare you off." Either way, Harry decided, we need to recover more artifacts and find out what this is all about. Starting with these 12 we've located. Ron studied the map. "That's a lot of ground to cover. Some of these places are bound to be protected." "We'll split up," Harry said firmly. "Luna and Neville, you take the locations in Scotland. Ron and Hermione, you handle Wales and the Midlands. I'll take the ones near London." "Alone?" Hermione asked, concerned. "That's where the Ministry is strongest." Harry picked up one of the artifacts he'd brought from Gringotts, a small silver compass that glowed faintly in his palm. "I won't be defenseless. And I'm the only one who can trigger the family recall if needed." After some debate, they agreed to Harry's plan. Using the Floo connection from Potter Haven, they could reach various wizarding locations across Britain. They would recover as many artifacts as possible within 48 hours, then regroup to plan their next move. "Remember," Harry cautioned as they prepared to leave, "Dumbledore isn't the only one we need to worry about now. If the Ministry gets wind of what we're doing, Umbridge will be all over it," Ron finished grimly. "That woman still got it in for you after last year." "Not just Umbridge," Hermione added. "The Department of Mysteries would have a field day with artifacts like these." And there are probably Death Eaters in the Ministry who'd love to get their hands on them too. That's why speed is essential, Harry said. In and out, minimal magic use, nothing that would trigger the trace or detection charms. As they made their final preparations, Harry felt a strange combination of nerves and exhilaration. For the first time, he was taking proactive steps, making his own plans instead of reacting to others. It was terrifying and liberating all at once. Be careful, he told his friends as they gathered around the fireplace. If anything goes wrong, don't try to be heroes. Just get back here immediately. Ron snorted. Bit rich coming from you, mate. Harry grinned despite himself. Do as I say, not as I do. One by one, they departed through the emerald flames, setting out on their separate missions. Harry was last, clutching a small bag containing the artifacts he'd chosen for protection, the mind shield ring still on his finger, the disruption whistle on a chain around his neck, and the Peveril compass in his pocket. Diagon Alley, he said clearly, stepping into the flames. The leaky cauldron was busier than Harry expected for a weekday afternoon. He kept his hood up as he slipped through the crowded pub, not wanting to be recognized. According to the magical traces Hermione had identified, the first artifact was somewhere in Nocturne Alley, the last place Harry wanted to be spotted. The transition from the respectable shops of Diagon Alley to the shady establishments of Nocturne was abrupt. Harry felt eyes watching him from shadowy doorways as he made his way deeper into the alley, guided by the Peveril compass which grew warmer as he approached his target. The compass led him to a shop with no name, just a faded sign showing a cracked mirror. The windows were grimy, revealing little of what lay inside. Harry hesitated, then pushed the door open, triggering a rusty bell. The interior was cluttered with objects that looked more like junk than valuable merchandise, broken furniture, tarnished metal objects, and dusty books. Behind a counter at the back sat an ancient witch with milky eyes. I don't serve children, she croaked without looking up. Out with you. Harry approached slowly. I'm looking for something that belongs to my family. Something that was sold here, inappropriately. The witch's head snapped up, her blind eyes somehow finding him. Potter, she hissed. I wondered when you'd come. Harry tensed, ready to grab his wand. You know who I am. I know what you seek. She reached beneath the counter and pulled out a small wooden box. He said you'd come eventually. Said to give you this when you did. He. You mean Dumbledore? The witch cackled. Not Dumbledore, boy. The other one. The prisoner. Harry's blood ran cold. Voldemort? Don't speak his name, she snapped. But no, not him either. The one before. The one from the continent. Grindelwald? Harry asked incredulously. You've had contact with Grindelwald? The witch pushed the box toward him. Take it and go. I've kept my promise. I want no part in what's coming. Harry cautiously took the box, feeling the familiar resonance of Potter magic within. He opened it to find a silver monocle set with tiny runes around the rim. The Peveril compass in his pocket vibrated in recognition. The revealer, the witch said softly. Shows what others wish to hide. Your grandfather used it to expose Grindelwald's followers in Britain during the war. And Grindelwald had it? How? Not had it. Knew where it was. She leaned forward. He's been watching, boy. All these years in his cell, he's been watching. And he says the old man hasn't told you everything. Not by half. Harry slipped the monocle into his pocket alongside the compass. Why would Grindelwald help me? Help you? The witch laughed, a horrible raspy sound. Oh, child. He's not helping you. He's playing his final game against Dumbledore, and you're just a piece on the board. I'm nobody's pawn, Harry said firmly. Then prove it. She waved a gnarled hand dismissively. Now go. Others will have felt the magic of that artifact awakening. You've got minutes at most before they come. Harry didn't need telling twice. He hurried back into Nocturne Alley, keeping to the shadows as he made his way toward his next target. The compass was pointing toward the upper end of Diagon Alley now, near Gringotts. As he emerged back into the main thoroughfare, a commotion near the bank caught his attention. A small crowd had gathered, watching as ministry officials in plum robes argued with several goblins on the steps of Gringotts. Harry edged closer, keeping his hood up. Among the ministry officials, he spotted a familiar pink-clad figure, Dolores Umbridge. "Absolutely insist that you comply with this search order," Umbridge was saying in her sickly sweet voice. "The ministry has reason to believe that dangerous magical artifacts have been illegally removed from secure storage." The lead goblin's expression was murderous. "Gringotts does not recognize ministry authority over client vaults or transactions. Your search order isn't worth the parchment it's written on." "Now see here," Umbridge bristled, "under Educational Decree 86, your educational decrees have no standing here," the goblin interrupted. "This is a sovereign goblin institution. Unless you wish to provoke a formal diplomatic incident, I suggest you take your pink self elsewhere." Several onlookers snickered, and Umbridge's face flushed an ugly red. "This concerns national security." The Potter artifacts, Harry stiffened. So she knew about the artifacts specifically. But how? Must be secured by proper authorities, not left to the whims of an unstable teenager. The goblin's expression didn't change, but Harry noticed several other goblins subtly moving into defensive positions. "Our client's property is their property. If you have concerns about Herr Potter's activities, I suggest you address them with him directly. Potter has disappeared from Hogwarts." Umbridge snapped. Along with several other students, clearly plotting something dangerous. "As senior undersecretary to the minister, I demand all you like," the goblin cut in. "Our position remains unchanged." "Good day, Madam Umbridge." The goblins turned in unison and marched back into the bank, leaving Umbridge fuming on the steps. She turned to the other officials. "Search every shop in Diagon and Nocturne. Potter can't have gone far. And post guards at every Floo connection, he'll need to use the network eventually." Harry retreated into a nearby alleyway, mind racing. Umbridge was specifically targeting him and the artifacts. Had Dumbledore involved the ministry, or was she acting on her own? Either way, his plan to retrieve the artifacts in London had just become much more complicated. The compass was still pointing toward a location near Gringotts, but with ministry officials swarming the area, approaching now would be suicide. Harry needed a distraction. He fingered the disruption whistle around his neck. According to the journal, it could temporarily disable any spell within a 20-foot radius when blown. Not enough to create chaos throughout Diagon Alley, but perhaps enough for a smaller diversion. Harry circled around to approach from Flourish and Blots, keeping the bookshop between himself and the Gringotts steps where Umbridge was still organizing search parties. The compass led him to a narrow gap between buildings where a service entrance to the bank was located. Above the door hung a small bell with intricate engravings, almost invisible unless you knew to look for it. The Potter artifact, hiding in plain sight. Two ministry officials stood nearby, scanning passing shoppers. Harry ducked behind a stack of crates, considering his options. He needed to get to that bell without being seen, and then make a quick escape. Inspiration struck when he noticed a delivery wizard approaching with floating crates of supplies. Harry pointed his wand at the crates and whispered, "Wingardium Leviosa, and Finite." The spell lifted the crates slightly higher, then abruptly cancelled, sending them crashing down. As the officials rushed to help, Harry darted forward, leapt up, and snatched the bell from its hook. He felt the familiar tingle of family magic as his fingers closed around it. "Hey! You there," one official shouted, spotting Harry. Harry brought the whistle to his lips and blew. No sound came out, but he felt a wave of magic pulse outward. The officials' stunning spells fizzled at their wand tips, and the magical lamps along the alley went dark. In the confusion, Harry sprinted away, dodging between startled shoppers. He could hear Umbridge's shrill voice ordering pursuit, but the disruption effect had temporarily disabled tracking charms as well. Harry ducked into Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, which was thankfully crowded with students. He spotted Fred behind the counter. "Fred," he hissed, approaching. "I need help." Fred's eyes widened. "Harry? Blimey, you're all over the Prophet. Dumbledore's gone mental looking for you, and now the Ministries, I know. Is there a back exit?" Fred didn't waste time with questions. "Through the storeroom. George is back there. He'll show you." "Thanks." "And Fred? If anyone asks, never saw you, mate." Fred winked. "Though I expect an explanation eventually." Harry slipped into the back, where George was inventorying products. His eyebrows shot up at the sight of Harry. Well. The most wanted wizard in Britain graces our humble shop. Need the back exit, George. Ministry's right behind me." George immediately moved a shelving unit, revealing a hidden door. "Leads to Muggle London." "What's going on, Harry?" "Ron disappeared too, Mum's having kittens." "Ron's safe. We're all safe. Just, retrieving some family property that Dumbledore took." George's expression darkened. "Old man's been nicking your stuff?" "That's low." "Yeah, about 75 pieces of magical artifacts low," Harry said grimly. "Listen, I can't explain now, but tell your dad we're okay. And if you hear anything about artifact seizures or Ministry raids, we'll get word to you," George promised. "How?" Harry hesitated, then decided to trust the twins. "Fire call, Potter Haven. Luna will answer." George nodded. "Got it. Now scarper before the pink toad finds you. And Harry? Whatever you're doing, give him hell." Harry grinned and slipped through the door into a narrow passage that eventually opened into a quiet London side street. He took a moment to catch his breath and examine his new acquisitions. The bell was small but heavy, with tiny figures etched around its rim depicting wizards standing against various magical creatures. According to the brief mental impression he received upon touching it, a strange new awareness he was developing with each artifact, this was the warning bell, designed to alert the bearer to approaching danger. The encounter at Gringotts had confirmed his worst fears. The Ministry was now actively involved, targeting the artifacts specifically. He needed to change strategies. Finding a secluded alley, Harry pulled out a small mirror, another Potter artifact he'd recovered from the vault. "Ron Weasley," he said clearly. After a moment, Ron's face appeared in the glass. "Harry. Everything all right? Ministry's involved. Umbridge is leading the search. They know about the artifacts." Ron swore. "Bloody hell. We just got the one from the Old Order safe house in Cardiff. Heading to the Midlands next." Change of plans, Harry decided. The individual retrievals are too risky now. We need to use the family recall for the remaining artifacts, all at once. From where? We can't do it from Potter Haven, they might track the magical surge. Harry thought for a moment. Hogwarts. Most of the remaining artifacts are probably there anyway, hidden by Dumbledore. If we return and trigger the recall from inside the castle, the school's ambient magic should mask the signature. Return to Hogwarts? Ron looked doubtful. Dumbledore will be waiting. Exactly. It's time to face him anyway, but on our terms, with as many artifacts as possible already recovered. Harry checked his watch. Tell the others. Meet at the Hog's Head in 6 hours. I have one more stop to make first. Nurmengard Prison wasn't what Harry expected. Rather than the imposing fortress of legend, it appeared as an abandoned lighthouse on a remote Nordic coastline. Harry knew this was magical concealment, but it was still disconcerting as he approached under his invisibility cloak. Getting here had been a challenge involving multiple international portkeys arranged through less-than-legal channels via Mundungus Fletcher, whom Harry had tracked down in a seedy London pub. The cost had been extortionate, but Harry now had access to the Potter vaults and wasn't concerned about gold. What did concern him was the risk he was taking. Meeting with Gellert Grindelwald, even an imprisoned, wandless Grindelwald, was dangerous. But after the witch in Nocturne Alley revealed the Dark Wizard's involvement, Harry needed answers. 2 guards patrolled the perimeter, their eyes glazed, clearly imperious. Voldemort's work, Harry suspected. The Dark Lord would want eyes in Nurmengard even if he couldn't free Grindelwald yet. Using the revealer monocle he'd recovered, Harry could see through the prison's concealment charms, revealing the true structure beneath, a twisted spire of black stone rising from the cliffs. The irony wasn't lost on Harry. Grindelwald had built this prison for his enemies, only to become its most famous inmate. Getting past the guards was surprisingly easy. They were focused on keeping someone in, not keeping visitors out. Once inside, Harry followed the spiraling stairs upward, guided by an instinct he couldn't explain. At the top level, a single door stood open, revealing a circular room with windows overlooking the churning sea. An elderly man sat in a chair by the window, thin to the point of emaciation, with wild white hair and piercing blue eyes that fixed on Harry the moment he removed his cloak. "Harry Potter," Grindelwald said, his accent still strong despite decades in prison. "Right on time." Harry kept his distance, wand ready. "You were expecting me." "For years." Grindelwald smiled thinly. "Ever since Albus began collecting your family's treasures. I knew eventually the last Potter would discover the theft." "How did you know about the artifacts?" "Because I helped create some of them." Seeing Harry's shock, he chuckled. "Oh yes. Before our falling out, Albus and I worked with your great-grandfather on several projects. The Peveril Compass was one such collaboration." Harry's hand instinctively went to his pocket where the compass sat. "You're lying." "Am I?" Grindelwald's eyes glittered. "Ask the compass itself. Potter artifacts respond to their owner's questions when properly asked." Hesitantly, Harry removed the compass and held it in his palm. "Show me your origins," he whispered. The needle spun rapidly, then projected a ghostly image of 3 young men working over a workbench, one clearly a Potter from his resemblance to Harry, and the other 2 unmistakably younger versions of Dumbledore and Grindelwald. "You see. Truth." Grindelwald leaned forward. "Your family understood something crucial about magic, Mr. Potter, that it transcends the artificial boundaries of dark and light. Power is power. The Potters worked with anyone who could help protect magical Britain, regardless of their other affiliations. Why are you telling me this? What do you want?" "Want? I'm a dying man imprisoned in a tower. What could I possibly want except perhaps a little chaos before the end?" Grindelwald laughed, a sound like dry leaves scraping stone. "But if you're asking why I sent you to find the revealer, why I'm helping you recover your inheritance, that's simple. Revenge. Against Dumbledore." "Precisely." Grindelwald's expression hardened. "He left me to rot here for decades while he played the benevolent headmaster, collecting power and influence. Using your family's artifacts to bolster his reputation while denying you your birthright." Harry remained skeptical. "You expect me to believe you care about justice for my family?" "Of course not. I care about watching Albus Dumbledore's carefully constructed world crumble." Grindelwald sat back. "But our interests align, temporarily. You want your artifacts, I want Albus exposed for the manipulative chess master he truly is." "What did you mean about the collection being divided for a reason?" "The warning you sent through Luna's father." Grindelwald's eyes narrowed. "So you received that? Good. It's quite simple, the Potter collection was never meant to be united. Individual artifacts, yes. Small combinations, certainly. But all 75 together? Catastrophic. Why? Because the collection isn't just a random assortment of powerful objects. It's a system, a magical technology designed for a specific purpose. Grindelwald pointed to the artifacts Harry carried. Each piece connects to the others, enhancing their effects. United, they create something new, something neither your ancestors nor Albus fully understood. Harry frowned. What do they create? A key. Grindelwald's voice dropped to a whisper. A key to unlock powers that haven't been accessed since the Founder's time. Powers tied to Hogwarts itself. That's impossible. Hogwarts is a school, not a school built on the most magically significant convergence point in Britain. Grindelwald scoffed. Why do you think it has remained the center of magical education for 1,000 years? Why its protections are unmatched? The castle contains secrets even Albus hasn't discovered. Harry thought of the Chamber of Secrets, the Room of Requirement. How many other hidden aspects of Hogwarts remained undiscovered? The architect, he said suddenly. Your warning mentioned the architect's design. Who is that? A strange expression crossed Grindelwald's face, almost fear. Not who. What? The architect is not a person but a concept, a magical construct programmed into the collection. Think of it as an ancient magical AI, to use a modern term. It was designed to activate when certain conditions are met, to implement contingency plans developed by your ancestors. What kind of contingency plans? The kind meant for the end of magical Britain. Grindelwald leaned forward. Your family weren't just creators and collectors, Mr. Potter. They were guardians of last resort. When all else failed, when magical society faced extinction, the Potter collection was meant to implement radical solutions. The implication sent a chill down Harry's spine. And Dumbledore wants to activate this? Why? Why does Albus do anything? The greater good. Grindelwald's mouth twisted bitterly around the phrase. He believes magical society is failing, that the old ways are dying, that drastic change is needed. The statute of secrecy is weakening. Muggles advance technologically while wizards stagnate. He sees collapse on the horizon. So he's been gathering the artifacts to implement some kind of reset. That's insane. Is it? Look at the wizarding world, Mr. Potter. Corrupt ministry. Blood purists gaining power. Dark Lord returned. From Albus's perspective, the system is broken beyond conventional repair. Harry paced the small cell, mind racing. But why not tell me? Why the secrecy? Would you have agreed to such a plan? To reshape magical society from its foundations? Grindelwald smiled grimly when Harry didn't immediately answer. Precisely. Easier to manipulate from the shadows, to present you with a fait accompli once all pieces are in position. A distant alarm began to sound. Grindelwald glanced toward the door. Our time grows short. The guards will soon realize something is amiss. He fixed Harry with an intense stare. You have a choice to make, Mr. Potter. Continue collecting the artifacts and risk activating the architect's design, or leave them dispersed, maintaining the status quo. Those aren't my only options, Harry countered. I can reclaim my family's property without triggering whatever catastrophe you're warning about. Perhaps. Grindelwald didn't sound convinced. But understand this, Albus will not surrender control easily. He believes entirely in his vision, just as I once believed in mine. The difference is, I wanted to rule the new world. Albus merely wants to create it, regardless of the cost. The alarm grew louder. Harry pulled his invisibility cloak back over his shoulders. One last thing, Grindelwald called as Harry moved toward the door. The Founder's Nexus, it's the linchpin. Without it, the collection cannot fully activate. Find it before Albus can use it. Where is it? Where it has always been. Hidden in plain sight, at the heart of Hogwarts. Grindelwald smiled enigmatically. Look for the room that transforms. The nexus lies beneath. With that cryptic clue, Harry slipped out, racing down the spiraling stairs as guards began rushing upward. He barely escaped the prison's boundaries before apparition wards snapped into place, reinforced by arriving Aurors. As Harry activated his emergency port key, Grindelwald's warnings echoed in his mind. Was he walking into a trap by continuing to collect the artifacts? Was Dumbledore's plan as dangerous as Grindelwald claimed? One thing was certain, he needed to get to Hogwarts as quickly as possible. The answers, and the remaining artifacts, waited there. The Hog's Head was as dingy as Harry remembered, smelling of goats and stale beer. He arrived last, finding his friends already gathered at a corner table under privacy charms. All looked tired but triumphant. "How many?" he asked without preamble, sliding into a seat. 17 in total, Hermione reported. 8 from Ron and me, 9 from Luna and Neville. Plus my 10 makes 27, Harry calculated. With the 37 we already recovered from Gringotts, that's 64. 11 missing, Neville noted. Including the most powerful ones, according to the inventory. Harry nodded grimly. And I think I know where they are. He quickly recounted his conversation with Grindelwald, watching their expressions shift from shock to concern. "You can't trust Grindelwald," Hermione exclaimed when he finished. "He's manipulating you against Dumbledore." "Probably," Harry agreed. "But that doesn't mean he's lying about everything. The warning about uniting the collection matches what we found in the Potter journals." Luna nodded. Several entries mention keeping certain artifacts separated. Your great-grandfather was particularly concerned about something called the confluence effect. "And the architect?" Ron asked. "That part sounds mental." "It does," Harry admitted. "But then, so does a hidden chamber with a basilisk, or a hat that reads minds. Hogwarts is full of ancient magic we barely understand." "So what's the plan?" Neville asked. Harry leaned forward. "We return to Hogwarts openly. No more hiding. We tell Dumbledore exactly what we've done and demand answers about the artifacts. Just walk in the front gates." Ron looked skeptical. "Exactly that. He won't attack students in front of witnesses. And once we're inside, we can trigger the family recall from the Room of Requirement, which I'm betting is what Grindelwald meant by, the room that transforms." "And the Founder's Nexus?" Hermione asked. "If it's really under the Room of Requirement, we'll find it." Harry's expression hardened. "One way or another, this ends at Hogwarts. Either Dumbledore explains himself and returns what's left of my family's property, or... Or what?" Neville prompted when Harry trailed off. "Or I make good on my family's legacy as protectors of Hogwarts," Harry said quietly. "With or without the headmaster's approval." The walk to Hogwarts was tense but uneventful. They approached openly, not bothering with concealment charms or disillusionments. As expected, they were met at the gates by Professor McGonagall, whose tight expression revealed a mixture of relief and anger. "Mr. Potter. And the rest of you." Her gaze swept over the group. "The entire castle has been in an uproar over your disappearance. The headmaster will want to see you immediately." "Good," Harry said calmly. "Because I want to see him too." McGonagall's eyebrows rose at his tone. "I see. Well, follow me." As they walked through the grounds, Harry noticed subtle changes, additional wards shimmering in the air, Aurors patrolling the perimeter, and an unusual number of staff watching from windows. "The Ministry's here," he observed. "Yes," McGonagall confirmed tightly. "Madame Umbridge has been most insistent about security concerns." They entered the castle to find the entrance hall crowded with students changing classes. Conversations died as people noticed Harry and his friends, whispers quickly spreading. "Potter's back. Where've they been? Did you hear about the Ministry raid?" McGonagall led them directly to the gargoyle guarding the headmaster's office. Acid pops, she said, and the statue leapt aside. Professor, Harry said before stepping onto the spiral staircase, I'd like witnesses for this meeting. Can you stay? McGonagall studied him for a moment. The headmaster may prefer a private conversation. I'm sure he would, Harry agreed. But given the circumstances, I think neutral parties would benefit everyone. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. Very well, Potter. Though I warn you, this situation has escalated beyond school discipline. They ascended to find the office door already open. Inside, Dumbledore sat behind his desk, looking older and wearier than Harry remembered. Standing nearby was Umbridge, a triumphant smile on her toad-like face, and to everyone's surprise, Rufus Scrimgeour, the Minister for Magic himself. Ah, Harry, Dumbledore said calmly, as though Harry had merely been late for a casual appointment. I'm pleased you've returned safely. And with your friends, I see. Headmaster, Harry replied evenly. Minister. Madam Umbridge. Mr. Potter, Scrimgeour stepped forward, his lion-like gaze intense. You've led us on quite a chase these past days. Perhaps you'd care to explain why you've been removing powerful magical artifacts from secured locations across Britain. Harry met his gaze steadily. I've been reclaiming my family's property, Minister. Property that was taken without my knowledge or consent following my parents' deaths. These are dangerous magical items, Potter. Umbridge interjected. Far too powerful for a child. I'm not a child, Harry cut her off. I'm the last Potter, and those artifacts belong to my family. They were entrusted to Dumbledore temporarily, not given. Dumbledore sighed. Harry, please understand. After your parents died, these artifacts needed protection. Many were dangerous, others valuable beyond measure. I kept them safe until you were ready. Ready? Harry's calm facade cracked slightly. When would that have been, exactly? After Voldemort was defeated? After I finished school? Or were you ever planning to tell me about them at all? Of course I was, Dumbledore insisted, though Harry noticed he didn't specify when. But the collection is more complicated than you realize. It's not merely a set of powerful objects. I know exactly what it is, Harry interrupted. A magical system designed by my ancestors as a last resort in times of crisis. What I don't know is why you've been secretly gathering all the pieces together, something my own family record specifically warned against. Surprise flashed across Dumbledore's face. You've been researching the collection. Impressive. But incomplete. He leaned forward. Harry, the wizarding world stands at a precipice. Voldemort's return is merely a symptom of deeper problems that have plagued our society for centuries. The Potter collection represents perhaps the only tool powerful enough to implement necessary changes. Changes you decided upon without consulting me, Harry pointed out. Using my family's magic for your vision of the greater good. Dumbledore flinched at the phrase. Who have you been speaking with, Harry? Does it matter? The truth is the same regardless of the source. Scrimgeour cleared his throat. This is all very interesting, but it doesn't change the fact that dangerous magical artifacts are being transported around Britain during a time of war. The Ministry cannot allow, the Ministry has no jurisdiction over family artifacts, Hermione interrupted, stepping forward. Wizarding law is quite clear on this point. Hereditary magical items are exempt from general restrictions on magical devices. Umbridge's face reddened. Miss Granger, your legal opinions are neither requested nor valued in this. Actually, McGonagall interjected, Miss Granger is correct. Family artifacts fall under ancient right of magical inheritance, not Ministry regulation. Unless Mr. Potter has used these items illegally, the Ministry has no grounds for confiscation. Scrimgeour looked annoyed but nodded reluctantly. That may be so, but when powerful magic is involved during wartime, exceptions can be made for public safety. Is that what this is about? Harry asked. Public safety? Or is it about control? He turned back to Dumbledore. You still haven't explained why you kept this from me. All these years, learning about magic, about my family, and you never once mentioned that the Potters were artifact creators and guardians. Dumbledore was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with resignation. I believed I was protecting you, Harry. The burden of the Potter legacy is immense, a responsibility that has crushed others before you. Your father himself struggled with it, which is why he and your mother placed most of the collection in secure storage during the war. But they left instructions, Harry countered. Instructions that the artifacts should be returned to me when I was old enough. Yes, Dumbledore admitted. But they couldn't have foreseen what would follow their deaths, your unique connection to Voldemort, the prophecy, the years of danger you would face. I made a judgment call, perhaps wrongly, to shield you from additional burdens until the time was right. And the architect? Harry pressed. Were you planning to activate it? A ripple of tension went through the room. Dumbledore's eyes widened slightly. You know about the architect, he said softly. Remarkable. Even I only discovered its existence a few years ago. Answer the question, Harry insisted. Were you gathering the collection to trigger whatever catastrophe the architect is designed to implement? Not catastrophe, Harry. Transformation. Dumbledore spread his hands. The architect is the culmination of centuries of Potter innovation, a magical construct designed to fundamentally realign the foundations of wizarding society in times of existential threat. Which you believe we're facing now? I do. Dumbledore's gaze swept over everyone in the room. Voldemort is merely a symptom of deeper rot. Blood purism. Corruption. Isolation from the Muggle world while they advance beyond us technologically. The statute of secrecy grows more untenable each year. Eventually, exposure is inevitable, and when it comes, our society is woefully unprepared. Scrimgeour looked alarmed. Dumbledore, you can't seriously be suggesting, I suggest nothing, Minister. I merely observe reality. Dumbledore turned back to Harry. The Potter collection, when fully assembled and properly activated, could restructure Magical Britain's relationship with the Muggle world on our terms, rather than waiting for catastrophic exposure. It could establish new foundations for a society that has grown dangerously stagnant. At what cost? Harry demanded. What exactly does this restructuring involve? Dumbledore hesitated. That is not entirely clear. The records are incomplete. But your ancestors designed it as a protective measure, not a destructive one. That's not good enough, Harry said firmly. You were planning to activate an ancient magical system whose exact effects you don't understand. Sometimes leap of faith is necessary, Harry. Not with my family's magic, Harry countered. Not without my consent. The standoff was interrupted by a commotion outside. The office door burst open, and Professor Snape strode in, his normally pale face flushed. Headmaster, he said urgently, the Dark Lord's forces are approaching Hogsmeade. Dozens of them, led by Bellatrix Lestrange. Scrimgeour turned sharply. That's impossible. Our intelligence indicated no planned attack. It's not an attack on the village, Snape replied grimly. They're heading directly for Hogwarts. His gaze flickered to Harry. The Dark Lord knows about the artifacts. He's coming for the collection. The room erupted in chaotic discussion. Umbridge demanded ministry reinforcements, Scrimgeour began issuing orders via his communication badge, and McGonagall hurried out to organize the school's defenses. In the confusion, Dumbledore moved closer to Harry, speaking quietly. This changes everything, Harry. If Voldemort gains control of even part of the collection, the consequences would be devastating. We must secure the remaining artifacts immediately. You mean you need to secure them, Harry corrected. This doesn't change my position, Professor. Those artifacts belong to my family. And I respect that, Dumbledore said urgently. But right now, the school is in danger. Students are in danger. Can we set aside our disagreement temporarily to address the immediate threat? Harry glanced at his friends, who nodded subtly. Fine. A temporary truce. What do you propose? The Founder's Nexus must be protected at all costs. It's the keystone of the entire collection. Without it, the other artifacts are merely very powerful magical tools, not a unified system. And where is it? Harry asked, though he already suspected the answer. Hidden beneath the Room of Requirement, as I believe you've already deduced. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled briefly. Clever of you to make that connection. Grindelwald helped, Harry said bluntly, watching Dumbledore's expression flicker with shock. Yes, I spoke with him. He had quite a lot to say about your plans for magical society. Gellert always was persuasive, Dumbledore said softly. But his understanding of the collection is outdated and incomplete. Whatever he told you, can wait, Harry interrupted as the castle trembled slightly. We need to get to the Room of Requirement now. They hurried from the office, leaving Scrimgeour and Umbridge arguing about evacuation procedures. In the corridors, prefects were directing younger students toward dormitories while older ones prepared defenses under the guidance of their professors. The Death Eaters shouldn't be able to breach the castle's outer wards, Dumbledore explained as they rushed toward the 7th floor. But they will try to find ways in through lesser-known passages. Mr. Filch is sealing those now. What about the Room of Requirement itself? Hermione asked. If someone needed a way into Hogwarts, couldn't it create one? Dumbledore looked troubled. An astute observation, Miss Granger. The room's magic is indeed a potential vulnerability, one of several reasons I've kept the Nexus nearby. They reached the 7th floor corridor to find it eerily empty. The blank wall opposite the tapestry of Barnabas the Barmy showed no sign of a door. We need to access the specific configuration that connects to the chamber below, Dumbledore explained. It requires precise intent. Let me, Harry stepped forward. Family magic responds better to me anyway. He paced before the wall, concentrating intensely. I need the room that hides the Founder's Nexus. I need to access my family's legacy beneath Hogwarts. I need the path to the heart of the collection. On the third pass, a door materialized, not the usual wooden door of the Room of Requirement, but an ancient stone archway carved with symbols similar to those on the Potter artifacts. It swung open silently, revealing not a room but a spiraling staircase descending into darkness. Remarkable, Dumbledore murmured. It's responding to your bloodline. The stairs haven't appeared for me in quite this form. They descended cautiously, wands lit. The staircase seemed to go down much further than should have been possible within the castle's structure, eventually opening into a vast circular chamber that took their breath away. The room was clearly ancient, with stone architecture predating Hogwarts itself. At its center stood a raised dais, upon which rested what could only be the Founder's Nexus, a crystalline sphere suspended within a complex framework of gold and silver, surrounded by 4 pedestals bearing the emblems of the Hogwarts houses. Around the chamber's perimeter stood empty alcoves, each shaped to hold a specific artifact. Harry recognized the forms, spaces designed for the very items his family had created over centuries. The collection was meant to be united here, Dumbledore said softly. In times of greatest need, when the school itself was threatened. Your ancestors built this chamber in collaboration with the Founders, creating a nexus of power that could be activated when all else failed. Harry approached the central dais, feeling the magic emanating from the nexus. It seemed to recognize him, pulsing with golden light as he drew near. Why is it responding to me like that? He asked. Because of your blood, Luna answered before Dumbledore could. The Potters were tied to Hogwarts from the beginning. Not as famous as the Founders, but essential partners in its creation. Dumbledore looked at Luna with surprise. Miss Lovegood is correct. The Peverils, who later became Potters through marriage, provided much of the underlying magical theory that made Hogwarts possible. This chamber predates the castle above it. A distant boom shook the chamber, sending dust cascading from the ceiling. "They're attacking the outer wards," Dumbledore said grimly. "We don't have much time. Harry, we need to secure the Nexus before Voldemort can access it." "And how do we do that?" Harry asked suspiciously. "I'm not activating the architect, if that's what you're suggesting." "No, nothing so dramatic. The Nexus can be temporarily disconnected from the castle's magic, making it transportable." Dumbledore gestured to the 4 pedestals. "But it requires the presence of artifacts aligned with each founder to safely disengage it." Harry's eyes narrowed. "Convenient that we would need to use some of my family's artifacts for this." "Not convenience, design," Dumbledore corrected. "The system was created with deliberate safeguards. Nothing can be activated without specific Potter artifacts serving as keys." Another explosion rattled the chamber more violently. "We don't have time for this," Ron said urgently. "Harry, what's the plan?" Harry made a swift decision. "We secure the Nexus, but we don't activate anything. Just disengage it so it can't be used by Voldemort." He turned to Dumbledore. "Which artifacts do we need?" Dumbledore looked relieved at Harry's cooperation. "For specific items, Gryffindor's gauntlet, Ravenclaw's diadem, Hufflepuff's chalice, and Slytherin's locket." "I have the gauntlet," Harry said. "It was among the first artifacts I recovered from Gringotts." "I suspected as much." Dumbledore sighed. "The others, however, are more complicated. The diadem was lost centuries ago. The chalice and locket. Voldemort corrupted them, turned them into Horcruxes." "Horcruxes?" Hermione gasped. "But that's the darkest magic, indeed, Miss Granger. I've been hunting them for years. I believed I had located the locket, but it proved to be a fake." Dumbledore pulled a tarnished locket from his robes. "Someone got there before me, leaving this in its place." Harry took the locket, turning it over to find a note tucked inside. His blood ran cold as he read it. "To the Dark Lord, I know I will be dead long before you read this, but I want you to know that it was I who discovered your secret. I have stolen the real Horcrux and intend to destroy it as soon as I can. I face death in the hope that when you meet your match, you will be mortal once more." "R.A.B., R.A.B., he whispered. "Regulus Arcturus Black. Sirius's brother." "What?" Dumbledore looked shocked. "Regulus was a Death Eater who disappeared. Are you suggesting he betrayed Voldemort?" "He must have." Harry's mind raced. If Regulus took the real locket, it could be at Grimmauld Place. Another explosion, closer this time, sent chunks of stone falling from the ceiling. "We need to move," Neville urged. "The Death Eaters are breaking through." Harry made a swift decision. "Professor, gather the students in the Great Hall. Set up defenses. We'll retrieve the locket from Grimmauld Place and return as quickly as possible." "And the diadem? The chalice?" Dumbledore asked. "One problem at a time," Harry replied. He turned to his friends. "Luna, Neville, stay here with Dumbledore. Help protect the students. Ron, Hermione, you're with me to Grimmauld Place. Potter," Dumbledore said urgently as Harry prepared to leave, "there's something else you should know. The Nexus isn't just a controller for the collection. It's also a repository of knowledge, your family's accumulated magical research across centuries. If it falls into Voldemort's hands, it won't," Harry said firmly. "But when this is over, Professor, you and I are going to have a very long conversation about trust and secrets." As they raced back up the stairs, the castle shook more violently. They emerged onto the 7th floor to find chaos, students running, portraits yelling warnings, and the distant sound of combat from the grounds. "We need to get to the headmaster's office," Hermione said. "Use his fleur to Grimmauld Place." They sprinted through the corridors, dodging panicked students and grim-faced professors preparing defenses. As they rounded a corner near the gargoyle statue, they collided with Professor McGonagall. "Potter! What are you doing? All students are to report to the Great Hall immediately. Professor, we need to use Dumbledore's flu, Harry explained quickly. There's an artifact at Grimmauld Place that could help defend the school. McGonagall hesitated only briefly. Very well. The password is still, acid pops. Be quick about it. They raced up to the office and threw flu powder into the fire. Number 12, Grimmauld Place. Harry called, stepping into the green flames. He emerged in the dusty kitchen of Sirius's ancestral home, followed seconds later by Ron and Hermione. The house was silent and dark, seemingly abandoned since the Order had relocated following Sirius's death. Where do we start? Ron asked, lighting his wand. If Regulus hid something valuable, it would be in his room, Harry decided. Top floor, I think. They searched the gloomy house methodically, starting with Regulus's bedroom. It remained untouched since his death, preserved like a shrine by the family's deranged house elf. Creature, Harry called suddenly, remembering the elf's devotion to Regulus. Creature, I need you. With a crack, the ancient house elf appeared, glaring suspiciously. Half-blood master calls Creature. What does he want in poor mistress's house? Creature, I need to know if Regulus left anything here, a locket, a heavy gold locket with an S on it. The elf's bloodshot eyes widened in shock. Master knows about the locket? Master Regulus's locket? Yes. Harry knelt to the elf's level. It's extremely important, Creature. We need it to protect Hogwarts from Voldemort. Creature trembled violently. Master Regulus died to get the locket. Ordered Creature to destroy it, but Creature failed. Nothing worked. Nothing Creature did would destroy it. Do you still have it? Hermione asked gently. The elf hesitated, then shuffled to a small cupboard in the corner of the room. From a hidden compartment, he withdrew a heavy gold locket exactly matching the fake in Harry's pocket. Here it is, Creature said miserably. Creature tried every way to destroy it, but could not fulfill Master Regulus's last order. Harry carefully took the locket, feeling the malevolence emanating from it. This is definitely it. I can feel the dark magic. But how do we use it if it's a Horcrux? Ron asked. Doesn't it need to be cleansed first? The chamber might be able to do that, Harry theorized. The Nexus is designed to work with the Founder artifacts in their original state. It might have the power to temporarily neutralize the Horcrux. A sudden thought struck him. Creature, do you know anything about Hufflepuff's cup? Another artifact Voldemort might have turned into a Horcrux. Creature shook his head. Creature only knows about the locket. Master Regulus never mentioned a cup. What about Ravenclaw's diadem? Hermione asked. It's been lost for centuries, but maybe the Black family had information about it. The lost diadem? Creature looked confused. Creature knows only stories. They say it's hidden where all lost things go. Harry's eyes widened. Where all lost things go, the room of requirement. When it becomes the room of hidden things. Of course. Hermione exclaimed. Remember all those piles of hidden objects we saw when hiding your potions book? The diadem could have been there for centuries. We need to get back to Hogwarts, Harry decided. Now we have 2 of the 4 artifacts we need. As they prepared to return, a silver lynx Patronus leapt through the wall, speaking with Kingsley Shacklebolt's voice. Death Eaters have breached the castle. Astronomy Tower compromised. Dumbledore defending Nexus Chamber. Return immediately. They rushed back to the flue, Harry clutching the Horcrux locket tightly despite its malevolent aura. As they tumbled back into Dumbledore's office, they found it in disarray, papers scattered, instruments broken, and Fawkes screeching in distress. The sounds of battle echoed through the castle as they raced down toward the Great Hall. Students were huddled there under protective enchantments maintained by the professors, while Order members and older students defended the entrances. Where's Dumbledore? Harry shouted to Lupin, who was directing defensive positions. Still in the lower chambers with McGonagall and Flitwick. Death Eaters are trying to break through from the Room of Requirement. They found another entrance somehow. Harry's blood ran cold. The Vanishing Cabinet. Malfoy must have fixed it. We need to get back to the Nexus, Hermione urged. And find the diadem on the way. They fought their way up to the 7th floor, dodging curses and helping defend younger students. When they reached the Room of Requirement corridor, they found it blocked by rubble from a collapsed wall. Death Eaters had blasted their way through but were now engaged in battle with Order members further down the hall. We need the room to become the place of hidden things, Harry shouted over the noise of combat. But the Death Eaters just came from there. The room can change while people are inside it, Luna's dreamy voice came from behind them. She and Neville had fought their way up from the lower floors. But it's dangerous, the configurations can overlap, creating unstable magic. We have to risk it, Harry decided. Luna, Neville, help hold off the Death Eaters. Ron, Hermione, with me. They approached the still visible door the Death Eaters had emerged from. Instead of entering directly, Harry placed his hand on the wall beside it and concentrated intensely, focusing on his Potter bloodline in connection to the castle. I need the room to transform, show me where lost things are hidden while maintaining the path to the Nexus. The door shimmered, and the sounds of battle from within abruptly ceased. When Harry cautiously opened it, he found not the passage the Death Eaters had used, but the familiar cathedral-like space filled with centuries of hidden objects. Yet at the far end, the spiral staircase to the Nexus chamber remained visible, a hybrid configuration the room had never shown before. It worked. Hermione gasped. But we need to hurry, this magical overlap won't be stable for long. The diadem, Harry reminded them. It could be anywhere in here. How will we find it in all this junk? Ron asked, gesturing at the towering piles. Harry closed his eyes, focusing on the feeling he'd developed with the other Potter artifacts, the resonance of ancient magic responding to his bloodline. This way, he said suddenly, moving unerringly through the labyrinth of hidden treasures. The path twisted and turned until they reached a tarnished bust wearing a discolored tiara. That's it, Harry breathed, carefully lifting the diadem. Like the locket, it radiated dark energy, another Horcrux. How did Voldemort find all these founder artifacts that my family was connected to? He was obsessed with Hogwarts history, Hermione suggested. Maybe he discovered the connection between the founders and the Potters, and sought the artifacts specifically because of that link. A low rumble shook the room, and the piles of objects began to shift ominously. The configurations are destabilizing, Hermione warned. We need to get to the Nexus now. They ran for the spiral staircase, dodging falling debris as the room began to collapse in on itself. The stairs seemed to stretch longer than before, descending endlessly into darkness. Finally, they burst into the Nexus chamber to find a battle already in progress. Dumbledore, McGonagall, and Flitwick were defending the central dais against Bellatrix Lestrange, Antonin Dolohov, and several other Death Eaters. Spells ricocheted off ancient protection wards, filling the air with magical discharge. Potter. Bellatrix cackled upon seeing him. The Dark Lord said you'd come running to protect your precious artifacts. Harry didn't waste breath responding. He sprinted toward the dais, pulling the gauntlet from his bag as he ran. Dumbledore saw him coming and created a shield corridor, temporarily blocking the Death Eaters' curses. The artifacts, the headmaster called. Got 3 of them. Harry replied, reaching the dais and placing the gauntlet on the Gryffindor pedestal. It immediately locked into place, glowing red and gold. The Horcruxes, Dumbledore began, looking concerned as Harry placed the corrupted locket and diadem on their respective pedestals. No choice, Harry cut him off. We need all 4 to secure the Nexus. The Slytherin and Ravenclaw pedestals accepted the corrupted artifacts, though their glow was sickly and unstable. Black tendrils of malevolent energy swirled around them. The Hufflepuff artifact, Dumbledore said urgently as he deflected a barrage of curses from Bellatrix. Without it, we cannot complete the disconnection. We don't have it. Harry shouted back, ducking a curse that sizzled past his ear. The chamber shook violently as more Death Eaters poured in from the staircase. The defenders were being pushed back, their perimeter shrinking. Harry! Luna called from where she was shielding an injured Flitwick. Use the family recall. You have 3 founder artifacts, that might be enough to summon the 4th. It was a desperate gamble, but they had no alternatives. Harry placed his bleeding hand on the Nexus sphere and focused all his will. By blood and right, I call the missing piece. Hufflepuff's chalice, return to where you belong. The chamber filled with blinding golden light as magic surged through the ancient stone. For a terrible moment, nothing happened, then reality itself seemed to tear open above the 4th pedestal. With a sound like thunder, a golden cup materialized, hovering momentarily before settling onto the Hufflepuff pedestal. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The 4 pedestals pulsed in harmony, their energies flowing into the central nexus. The corrupted Horcruxes writhed as if in pain, black smoke pouring from them as the nexus's power temporarily suppressed Voldemort's soul fragments. Now, Harry! Dumbledore shouted over the cacophony of battle. Touch the nexus and command it to disconnect. Harry placed both hands on the crystalline sphere, feeling the immense power flowing through it. I, Harry James Potter, last of my line, command the nexus to disengage from Hogwarts. The sphere flared blindingly, then detached from its moorings. The entire chamber began to shake violently, stones falling from the ceiling. The chamber is collapsing. McGonagall yelled. Everyone out, now. Death Eaters and Defenders alike scrambled for the exit as the ancient chamber began to disintegrate. Harry grabbed the now portable nexus, which had shrunk to the size of a snitch, and the 4 founder artifacts, which had been cleansed of their Horcrux corruption by the nexus's power. They raced up the crumbling staircase, the structure collapsing behind them. They emerged into the room of requirement just as it, too, began to destabilize, its magic disrupted by the nexus's removal. Through the door. Dumbledore commanded, blasting a path through the shifting debris. They tumbled out into the 7th floor corridor to find the battle had spread throughout the castle. Order members were engaged with Death Eaters at every turn, while professors led younger students to safety. We have the Nexus, Harry told Dumbledore, showing the miniaturized sphere. What now? Now we must get it and you to safety, Dumbledore replied. Voldemort will sense that his Horcruxes have been neutralized. He'll come himself. As if summoned by Dumbledore's words, an unnatural chill swept through the corridor. Windows frosted over instantly, and torches dimmed to barely visible embers. He's here, Dumbledore said quietly, his expression grave. Harry, you need to leave immediately. Take the Nexus and the artifacts. I'm not running, Harry interrupted firmly. Not anymore. This is my legacy, my responsibility. Before Dumbledore could argue further, a terrible, high-pitched voice echoed through the castle. Harry Potter. I know you have taken what is mine. The artifacts, the Nexus, surrender them now, and I will permit the school to remain standing. Resist, and I will tear down every stone of Hogwarts and salt the earth where it stood. Harry exchanged glances with his friends and Dumbledore. A silent understanding passed between them. Get everyone to the Great Hall, Harry decided. All students, all defenders. If Voldemort wants a confrontation, let's control where it happens. And the Nexus? Dumbledore asked. Harry looked down at the crystalline sphere in his hand, pulsing with the combined power of his family's legacy and the Founder's artifacts. I think it's time I understood exactly what my family created this for, he said quietly. Time to face the architect. Chapter 3, Power and Consequence. The Great Hall buzzed with terrified whispers as students huddled together, surrounded by professors and order members forming a protective ring. Harry stood at the entrance, watching as the last stragglers were ushered inside. The miniaturized Nexus felt warm against his palm, pulsing with ancient magic that seemed to call to his blood. "Everyone's accounted for," McGonagall reported, her face tight with worry but her voice steady. "The younger students are in the protected corner with Pomona and Phileas." Harry nodded. "And the Death Eaters?" "Regrouping outside the castle," Kingsley Shacklebolt answered, approaching with his wand drawn. "They've withdrawn temporarily, but our scouts report Voldemort himself is at the gates." "Good," Harry said, earning surprised looks. "Let him come. Better here than chasing us across the countryside." "Harry, you can't seriously be considering facing him directly," Hermione whispered, eyes wide. "Not even with the artifacts." "I'm through running." Harry's voice hardened as he scanned the hall. His gaze locked with Dumbledore's across the room, where the headmaster was reinforcing magical barriers with complex wandwork. "Some fights you can't avoid." Ron clapped his shoulder. "Then we face him together, yeah? Just like always." Harry smiled grimly. "Just like always." Dumbledore approached, his movements lacking their usual grace. The night's battles had clearly taken a toll on him. "Harry, I must insist you reconsider. The Nexus and artifacts must be protected at all costs. If Voldemort gets his hands on them, it's game over," Harry finished. "I know. But I'm not hiding them away for another generation to deal with the consequences." He held up the small crystalline sphere. "My ancestors built this for a purpose, and it's time I figured out what that was." "You don't understand the forces you're tampering with," Dumbledore pressed, genuine concern in his eyes. "The architect's design was meant for circumstances so dire that, worse than Voldemort at our doorstep." Harry challenged. "Worse than him hunting my friends, destroying everything I care about." "Tell me, Professor, what exactly were you waiting for?" Before Dumbledore could answer, a thunderous boom shook the entire castle. Dust rained from the enchanted ceiling, which showed storm clouds gathering in a night sky that had been clear minutes before. "He's breached the outer wards," Flitwick called, his wand tracing complex patterns in the air as he monitored the castle's defenses. Harry tucked the Nexus into an inner pocket of his robes and reached for the 4 founder artifacts he'd recovered. Each hummed with power as he touched them: the gauntlet, the locket, the diadem, and the cup. "I need to understand what these can do together," he muttered, more to himself than the others. The journal mentioned combinations having amplified effects. Luna approached, her dreamy expression replaced by intense focus. "The Peveril compass," she suggested. "It can identify magical signatures. Perhaps it can read the artifact's purposes too." Harry pulled out the compass, its needle spinning wildly in the presence of so much concentrated magic. He pressed it against the gauntlet first, and words appeared in glowing script around its rim: "Defender, shields the worthy from harm." "That's more specific than the inventory description," Hermione noted, watching over his shoulder. Harry tried each artifact in turn. "The locket, Revealer, exposes deception and falsehood. The diadem, Wisdom, enhances the mind's natural gifts. The cup, Sustainer, preserves life force and magical energy." Their tools, Harry realized, excitement building despite the danger. Not just symbols or relics, they're magical tools designed for specific functions. Another explosion rocked the castle, closer this time. The enchanted ceiling flickered ominously. "Harry, they're inside the castle," Neville reported from his position near a window. "Coming through the main entrance. Decision time." Harry looked down at the artifacts in his hands, then at his friends, each ready to fight despite the overwhelming odds. Finally, he turned to Dumbledore. "You kept these from me because you were afraid of what I might do with them," Harry said, not as an accusation but as a statement of fact. Dumbledore didn't deny it. "Power changes people, Harry. Even those with the best intentions." "Maybe." Harry began fastening the gauntlet to his right hand. "But sometimes you need power to protect what matters." He slipped the locket around his neck, placed the diadem on his head, and held the cup in his left hand. Time to see what my family's legacy can really do. The effect was immediate and stunning. Magic surged through Harry like electricity, connecting the artifacts in a circuit with him at the center. His vision sharpened dramatically. He could see magic itself flowing through the walls of Hogwarts, could discern the individual signatures of every witch and wizard in the hall. The diadem enhanced his thoughts, bringing clarity and insight beyond anything he'd experienced. The gauntlet hummed with protective energy on his right hand, while the cup in his left glowed softly, feeding strength into his core. "Bloody hell," Ron whispered, stepping back as a golden aura surrounded Harry. Dumbledore's expression shifted from concern to something like awe. "The artifacts have accepted you completely. They recognize you as their rightful wielder." Harry nodded, feeling the truth of it in his bones. This power wasn't foreign or corrupting, it felt like coming home, like something that had always been waiting for him. "Everyone get ready," he commanded, voice steady. "Defensive positions like we practiced in the DA. No heroics, protect each other first." The hall reorganized swiftly, students and adults forming interlocking defense groups. Harry moved to the center of the hall, directly facing the main doors. "Harry," Hermione caught his arm, her expression torn between worry and determination. "The Nexus, what are you planning to do with it?" "I don't know yet," he admitted. "But I think it'll show me when the time is right." The massive doors to the great hall shuddered under a powerful curse. Wood splintered and metal groaned as whatever protections remained started to fail. "Stand ready," Kingsley called, raising his wand along with 24 others. The doors exploded inward in a shower of debris. Through the dust and smoke stepped Lord Voldemort, flanked by his inner circle, Bellatrix Lestrange cackling at his right hand, Lucius Malfoy at his left, looking haggard but dangerous. Behind them streamed masked Death Eaters, fanning out to surround the hall. Voldemort's red eyes found Harry immediately, narrowing at the sight of the artifacts he wore. "Harry Potter," he hissed, voice carrying easily through the silent hall. "Playing with toys that belong to your betters." Harry stepped forward, acutely aware of the power flowing through him. "Hello, Tom. Breaking and entering now. Bit desperate, even for you." Voldemort's lipless mouth twisted in anger. "Insolent child. You have something that belongs to me. Your Horcruxes." Harry felt the locket around his neck grow warm, revealing Voldemort's deception. "No, that's not it. You're here for the Nexus. You want what my family built." A flicker of surprise crossed Voldemort's inhuman features. "Your family were merely caretakers for power they never truly understood. I will unlock its true potential." "You don't even know what it is," Harry countered, circling slowly to draw Voldemort's attention away from the students. The diadem was feeding him insights, helping him read the situation with unprecedented clarity. "You found out about the artifacts recently, probably tortured someone from the Department of Mysteries for information. But you're missing pieces of the puzzle." Voldemort's eyes flashed dangerously. "I know enough. The Potter collection can reshape the foundations of magic itself. With it, I will remake this world in my image. Now who's being insolent?" Harry taunted, buying time as he sensed the Nexus warming in his pocket, responding to the presence of the 4 Founder artifacts he wore. "You tried to use Founder's artifacts for your Horcruxes because you sensed their power, but you never understood their true purpose." "Enough talk." Voldemort raised his wand. "Surrender the Nexus, or I will take it from your corpse." Harry didn't reply. Instead, he pulled the miniature sphere from his pocket and held it up. The reaction was immediate, the Nexus flared with blinding light, expanding to its full size and hovering between Harry and Voldemort. The crystalline sphere pulsed with swirling energy, images forming and dissolving within its depths, scenes from wizarding history, moments of crisis and triumph, and faces of Potters through the generations, each holding various artifacts from the collection. "What is this?" Voldemort demanded, taking an involuntary step back. "Family history lesson," Harry replied, feeling knowledge flow into him through the connected artifacts. The architect is showing me what I need to know. Within the Nexus, images continued to form. Harry saw Hogwarts being built, watched as his ancestors worked alongside the founders to create not just a school, but a repository of magical knowledge and power. He saw the first artifact being forged, then more, each designed to address specific threats to magical society. The collection was never meant for domination, Harry said, understanding dawning. It was created to preserve, to protect. Each piece solving a different problem, maintaining balance. Dumbledore stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the Nexus. The preservation protocol. That's what the architect was designed for, not to reshape society by force, but to preserve magical knowledge and ability if the worst should happen. Exactly, Harry confirmed, the diadem enhancing his comprehension. My ancestors saw how fragile magical society could be, vulnerable to persecution, to internal strife, to loss of knowledge. They built a system to ensure magic would survive, no matter what. Voldemort's expression twisted with rage and covetousness. That power should be mine to command. Imperio. The curse shot toward Harry only to dissolve harmlessly against the gauntlet on his right hand. Harry didn't even flinch. Not going to work, Tom. He raised his gauntlet hand, and a shield of golden energy expanded outward, pushing Death Eaters back from their positions around the hall. The artifacts reject you. They're bound to my bloodline for a reason. Then I'll take your blood along with them. Voldemort snarled. Avada Kedavra. The killing curse streaked toward Harry, but before it could hit, the cup in his left hand glowed brilliantly. The curse struck an invisible barrier inches from Harry's chest and rebounded, forcing Voldemort to dive aside. The cup of life, Harry realized. It doesn't just sustain, it reflects death magic. Voldemort's face contorted with fury. Attack, he commanded his followers. Kill everyone but Potter. He's mine. Chaos erupted as Death Eaters launched curses toward the defenders. But Harry was ready. He raised both artifacts in his hands and channeled his intent through them. A dome of protective energy expanded outward from the gauntlet, while streams of golden light shot from the cup toward his allies, temporarily shielding them from lethal spells. The defenders rallied, fighting back with coordinated precision. The DA members particularly shone, using tactics they'd practiced together. Neville and Luna fought back-to-back, their spells complementing each other perfectly. Ron directed defensive movements like a chess master, while Hermione unleashed complex combinations of charms and transfigurations. Through it all, Harry confronted Voldemort directly, their duel at the center of the storm. The Dark Lord unleashed curses of incredible power, but the artifacts gave Harry capabilities beyond anything he'd possessed before. The diadem let him anticipate Voldemort's moves, the gauntlet blocked the worst attacks, and the cup continuously fed him strength. You've improved, Potter, Voldemort snarled between curses. But you're still just a boy playing with powers you don't understand. You're wrong, Harry countered, deflecting a curse and returning fire with precision. I understand exactly what these artifacts are for, and it isn't this. They weren't made for duels or power struggles. The Nexus continued to hover between them, its swirling images showing more of the collection's purpose. Harry saw how the artifacts had been used throughout history, not as weapons, but as tools for healing, for teaching, for preserving knowledge during times when magic was hunted. Inspiration struck. Harry lunged forward, narrowly avoiding a killing curse, and touched the Nexus with both the gauntlet and cup simultaneously. Show everyone the truth, he commanded. The sphere expanded dramatically, projecting its images throughout the hall for all to see. Death Eaters and Defenders alike paused in their battles, transfixed by the visions of magical history unfolding before them. This is our heritage, Harry called out, his voice carrying through the sudden silence. Not pure blood against Muggleborn, not dark against light. Magic itself, the knowledge and power our ancestors fought to preserve. The images shifted to show times of persecution, witch burnings, magical communities forced into hiding, the establishment of the Statute of Secrecy. Then came scenes of internal strife, goblin rebellions, giant wars, the rise of dark wizards like Grindelwald and Voldemort himself. The collection wasn't built to conquer, Harry continued, understanding flowing through him from the artifacts. It was built to rebuild if everything else failed, to preserve what makes us magical if our society collapsed. Voldemort snarled, sentimental drivel. Power exists to be used. He launched another barrage of curses, forcing Harry to focus on defense once more. As they dueled, Harry noticed something unexpected: the more he used the artifacts for protection rather than attack, the stronger they became. The gauntlet's shield expanded, the cup's healing energy intensified, the diadem's insights grew sharper, and the locket revealed hidden Death Eaters attempting to flank vulnerable students. "You're fighting the artifact's true nature," Harry realized aloud. "They get stronger when used for their intended purpose, to protect, to heal, to reveal truth, to preserve knowledge." Voldemort's attacks grew more frenzied, less controlled. "Then I'll destroy them all and forge new ones," he screamed, unleashing fiendfire that took the form of a massive serpent. Harry didn't retreat. Instead, he raised all 4 artifacts together and spoke a phrase that came to him through the diadem's insight: Custodes Lucas. The Potter family motto, Guardians of the Light, triggered a combined reaction from the artifacts. The gauntlet projected a shield, the cup infused it with life energy, the diadem shaped it with precision, and the locket filled it with revealing light that stripped away deception. The fiendfire serpent hit this combined defense and dissolved, its magical energy absorbed and neutralized. The backlash sent Voldemort stumbling backward, momentarily vulnerable. Harry seized the opportunity. He touched the Nexus again, this time with clear purpose. "Show me how to activate the preservation protocol." The sphere pulsed, then projected a specific sequence of gestures and words. Harry understood immediately: this was the activation sequence for the architect's design, the ultimate purpose of the collection. Dumbledore recognized what was happening and rushed forward. "Harry, wait. Once activated, the process cannot be stopped. We should study it further, understand all the implications." "There's no time," Harry replied, the diadem showing him possibilities branching outward from this moment. "Voldemort won't stop. The Ministry is compromised. If we lose today, the collection falls into his hands." "What exactly will it do?" Hermione asked, deflecting a curse from Bellatrix while backing toward Harry. "Create a sanctuary," Harry explained, the knowledge flowing from the connected artifacts. "A hidden place where magical knowledge and ability can be preserved if society collapses. It's been building for centuries, waiting to be completed." "A sanctuary where?" Ron called, ducking a curse. "Everywhere and nowhere." Harry's eyes gleamed with understanding. "A pocket dimension anchored to magical locations across Britain. Like a room of requirement for all magical people, but accessible only in greatest need." Voldemort had recovered and was advancing again, his red eyes fixed on the Nexus. "Whatever you're planning, Potter, I won't allow it." Harry made his decision. "Cover me," he told his friends. "I need 30 seconds to complete the activation." His friends formed a protective ring around him as Harry began the complex sequence of movements with the artifacts. The Nexus responded, expanding further until it engulfed Harry completely in a sphere of swirling light and magic. Inside this bubble of energy, Harry found himself face to face with a figure he'd seen countless times in photographs, a man with untidy hair and glasses, standing beside a woman with bright green eyes. "Dad? Mom?" he whispered, heart clenching. "Not exactly," the James-like figure said with a sad smile. "We're echoes, preserved within the Nexus. Memory imprints your parents left before they died, knowing you might one day need guidance. We're so proud of you, Harry," the lily figure added, her expression warm. "You've done wonderfully, finding your heritage, understanding its purpose." "The architect," Harry realized. "You're part of it." "We're its most recent guides," James nodded. "Each generation of Potters adds to the architect's design, updating its purpose for the challenges of their time." Your father and I saw the war with Voldemort coming, Lily explained. We added protection specifically designed to counter his kind of darkness. Why didn't anyone tell me? Harry couldn't keep the hurt from his voice. Why keep all this secret? James sighed. That was never the intention. If we had lived, you would have grown up knowing everything about your heritage. Our contingency plans assumed Sirius would raise you with this knowledge. But then everything went wrong, Lily continued. We died, Sirius was imprisoned, and Dumbledore, with the best intentions, decided to keep you separated from a legacy he feared might burden or endanger you. He was wrong, Harry said firmly. Yes and no. James looked thoughtful. The collection is a heavy responsibility. We would have eased you into it gradually, not thrust it all upon you at once in the middle of a crisis. Which brings us to now, Lily said, her expression growing serious. You're ready to activate the preservation protocol. Are you certain? Harry hesitated. What exactly will happen? The collection will fulfill its ultimate purpose, James explained. Creating a magical sanctuary that exists partially outside normal spacetime, a refuge where magical knowledge, creatures, and people can survive if the worst happens. It's not an escape, Lily clarified. It's a preservation measure, ensuring that even if magical society collapses entirely, something remains to rebuild from. Will it hurt anyone? Harry asked. Dumbledore seemed to think it would reshape magical society by force. James snorted. Albus always did overthink things. The protocol doesn't force anything. It creates possibility, not certainty. It will drain the collection's power significantly, Lily warned. The artifacts will remain, but many will become dormant until they naturally recharge over decades. Harry thought of the battle raging outside this peaceful bubble, of Voldemort's determination to possess the Nexus, of the endless cycle of conflict that had plagued the wizarding world. I'll do it, he decided. Show me how to complete the activation. His parents' echoes guided him through the final steps, positioning the founder artifacts in specific orientations around the Nexus. As he completed the sequence, the sphere began to pulse with blinding light. We're so proud of you, Harry, Lily said, her image beginning to fade. Remember, the collection was built with love, love for magic, love for knowledge, love for future generations who deserve the chance to experience both. One last thing, James added as he too began to dissolve. The activation will temporarily supercharge the artifacts you're wearing. Use that moment wisely. Their images disappeared completely as the Nexus contracted suddenly, condensing into a point of impossibly bright light. Then it expanded outward in a silent shockwave that passed harmlessly through everyone in the Great Hall before continuing beyond, spreading across Hogwarts and out into the world. The bubble around Harry vanished, returning him to the battle, but something had changed. The 4 artifacts he wore glowed with unprecedented power, and he could feel the magic of Hogwarts itself responding to the activation, ancient wards strengthening and previously hidden defenses awakening. Voldemort sensed the change immediately, his expression shifting from rage to something Harry had never seen on his face before, fear. What have you done? The Dark Lord demanded. Harry stepped forward, the supercharged artifacts lending him strength and clarity beyond anything he'd experienced. I've completed what my family started centuries ago. The collection has fulfilled its primary purpose. Throughout the castle, dormant magical protections were activating. The suits of armor animated, portraits revealed hidden passages to safety, and the very stones seemed to vibrate with renewed enchantment. It doesn't matter. Voldemort snarled, raising his wand. I'll destroy you and take what remains of the power for myself. No, Tom. You won't. Harry's voice was calm but carried throughout the hall. The artifacts have chosen, and they've rejected you completely. With the diadem enhancing his magical perception, Harry could see what others couldn't. Voldemort's connection to his Horcruxes was visible as dark tendrils extending outward from his distorted soul. And those connections were being systematically severed by the preservation protocol, which recognized them as abominations against the natural flow of magic. Voldemort felt it too. He clutched at his chest, his inhuman face contorting in pain and rage. "What are you doing to me?" "Nothing," Harry answered truthfully. "The protocol is designed to preserve magic in its purest form. Your Horcruxes are anathema to that purpose. It's purging them from the magical network." Across Britain, hidden Horcruxes were being neutralized, not destroyed, but isolated within containment fields that prevented their corruption from spreading. Voldemort could feel each severing as it happened, his tenuous immortality unraveling strand by strand. "No!" he screamed, unleashing a desperate barrage of killing curses toward Harry. Harry raised the gauntlet, and this time the shield that formed was unlike anything seen before, a dome of pure golden light that didn't just block the curses but absorbed them completely. "The artifacts were never weapons," Harry said, advancing steadily. "But they are extremely effective against those who threaten what they were built to protect." Voldemort backed away, turning to his followers for support, but the Death Eaters were engaged in their own desperate battles. Many were being overcome by Hogwarts' awakened defenses, animated statues grappling with masked figures, enchanted tapestries binding intruders, and the castle itself seeming to fight back against those who threatened its students. "Your Horcruxes are contained," Harry continued, the locket around his neck revealing exactly what was happening to Voldemort's soul fragments. "You're mortal now, Tom. Just a man, a brilliant, terrible man who could have done so much good but chose differently." Backed against the wall with his immortality stripped away, Voldemort made one last, desperate attack. He pointed his wand not at Harry but at a group of younger students huddled behind their professors. "Avada Kedavra," he screamed, green light erupting toward the defenseless children. Harry reacted instinctively, diving into the curse's path. The cup in his left hand flared brilliantly, and instead of striking Harry, the killing curse seemed to flow into the ancient artifact. For a moment, the cup turned a sickly green, then it pulsed with golden light, transforming the death magic into something new. A beam of pure white light shot from the cup toward Voldemort, engulfing him completely. He screamed, not in pain but in what sounded like shock and disbelief. When the light faded, Tom Riddle stood where Voldemort had been, human again, his snake-like features gone, appearing as he had in his prime before Horcruxes had twisted his form. "What have you done to me?" Riddle demanded, his voice no longer the high-pitched hiss but a normal human baritone. "Healed you," Harry answered, as surprised as everyone else. "The cup is a life artifact, it transformed death magic into its opposite." Riddle looked down at his restored hands in disbelief, then raised his wand with renewed determination. "I don't need immortality to kill you, Potter." But before he could cast, the locket around Harry's neck pulsed, sending a wave of revealing light that stripped away all magical disguises and enhancements in the hall. Riddle's wand, the elder wand he had taken from Dumbledore's tomb, suddenly recognized that it was being used against its true master. The wand flew from Riddle's hand, arcing through the air to land in Harry's palm beside the gauntlet. With his Horcruxes neutralized, his body forcibly restored, and his wand lost, Tom Riddle stood defenseless. Around the hall, seeing their leader vulnerable, Death Eaters began surrendering or fleeing, only to be captured by Hogwarts' awakened defenses. "It's over, Tom," Harry said quietly. Riddle's handsome face twisted with hatred. "You think restoring my human form is mercy? This changes nothing. I'll rebuild, return stronger." "No," Harry interrupted. "You won't. The preservation protocol has another function. It identifies threats to magical harmony and offers choices." As he spoke, a golden light surrounded Riddle, and Harry could see what was happening through the enhanced perception granted by the diadem. The protocol was offering Riddle alternatives, pathways his life could take, branching possibilities. "You can feel it, can't you?" Harry asked. "The options being presented to your magic, to your soul. Redemption. Atonement. Even simple containment. Your choice." Riddle's eyes widened as he experienced the protocol's effect. For a brief moment, something like wonder crossed his face, then it hardened into familiar hatred. "I choose power," he snarled, reaching for the darkest option presented to him. Harry sighed. I thought you might. The moment Riddle made his choice, the golden light constricted around him, forming a perfect containment sphere. His restored body froze in place, suspended in a state between time and space, not dead, but removed from the world he had tried to dominate. What happened to him? Ron asked, approaching cautiously. He's been preserved, Harry explained, the knowledge coming through the diadem. Contained in a pocket dimension created specifically for those who threaten magical existence. He's aware but can affect nothing. A prison, Hermione realized. A perfect one, Dumbledore added, limping forward to examine the containment sphere. No walls to break, no guards to overpower, no place to escape to. Ingenious. With Voldemort contained and his followers captured or fled, an eerie silence fell over the Great Hall. The supercharged artifacts were already beginning to dim, their emergency power fading now that the immediate threat had passed. Harry removed them one by one, first the diadem, then the locket, the cup, and finally the gauntlet. As each left his body, he felt the enhanced awareness and power recede, leaving him exhausted but clear-headed. The preservation protocol, Dumbledore said softly, watching as Harry gathered the artifacts. I never understood its true purpose. I believed it would forcibly reshape our society. That's because you were looking at it from the wrong angle, Harry replied without anger. You saw power and assumed control was its purpose. My ancestors saw vulnerability and created protection. Students and staff began moving throughout the hall, tending to the wounded and securing captured Death Eaters. The fighting was over, but the aftermath was just beginning. Minister Scrimgeour approached, looking battered but determined. Potter. That was extraordinary magic. The Ministry will have questions. I'm sure they will, Harry agreed tiredly. But the answers belong to my family, not the Ministry. The artifacts, are Potter heirlooms, Harry cut him off firmly. Protected by inheritance law, as Professor McGonagall pointed out earlier. Scrimgeour looked like he wanted to argue but thought better of it. We'll discuss this further when things have settled. For now, we have prisoners to process and a castle to secure. As the minister walked away, Dumbledore remained, his blue eyes fixed on Harry with a mixture of pride, regret, and curiosity. I owe you an apology, Harry, he said quietly. Many apologies, in fact. Yes, you do. Harry met his gaze steadily. You stole from me, Professor. Not just objects, but knowledge of who I am, who my family was. I thought I was protecting you, Dumbledore sighed. The burden of the Potter legacy is immense, I've seen it crush others before you. Your father struggled with it tremendously. That should have been my struggle to face, Harry countered. My heritage to learn. My decision whether to take up the responsibility or not. You're right. Dumbledore's admission was simple but powerful. I made a choice for you that wasn't mine to make. I convinced myself it was for your protection, but perhaps I also feared what might happen if you had full access to your family's power. Harry considered this. You thought I might become like Tom? Or like you? Both possibilities concerned me, Dumbledore admitted. Power changes people, Harry. I've seen it happen too many times, and experienced it myself. Yet here we are, Harry gestured around the hall. I had all that power just now. Did I use it to control? To dominate? No, Dumbledore acknowledged. You used it exactly as your ancestors intended, to protect, to preserve. A smile touched his lips. You are very much your mother's son in that regard. The mention of his mother reminded Harry of the echo he'd seen within the Nexus. They left messages for me, memories within the Nexus. They never intended for the collection to be kept from me. Another of my mistakes, Dumbledore nodded. I interpreted their protective measures as a desire to shield you from the burden, when in fact they were setting up safeguards to help you bear it. Harry felt his anger toward Dumbledore softening, not disappearing but transforming into something more complex. What happens now? With the protocol activated, everything's changed. Indeed it has. Dumbledore looked thoughtful. The Preservation Sanctuary now exists, a space between spaces where magical knowledge, creatures, and even people can find refuge if needed. A remarkable achievement. But what does it mean for everyday life? Hermione asked, joining their conversation. Will people even notice anything's different? Most won't, Harry explained, drawing on lingering insights from the diadem. The sanctuary remains dormant until needed. Like insurance against catastrophe. And the artifacts? Ron asked, eyeing the 4 founder relics Harry had set aside. Temporarily drained, Harry confirmed. They'll recharge eventually, but for now, their major powers are dormant. They're just very well-made magical tools again. Dumbledore nodded. Which is perhaps for the best. Such power should be used sparingly, and only in greatest need. Harry gathered the artifacts, suddenly feeling the weight of exhaustion. I need to collect the rest of the collection. Bring everything together, catalog it properly. And then? Dumbledore asked. Harry considered the question seriously. Then I learn. Really learn what my family created, what they protected, what responsibilities I've inherited. He looked around at his friends, who stood by him despite everything they'd been through. And I won't do it alone. 3 months later, Harry stood in the newly restored Potter Haven, surrounded by display cases containing the complete collection, all 75 artifacts recovered and properly documented. The room hummed with subtle magic, each piece connected to the others in a complex web that Harry was only beginning to understand. That's the last of them, Hermione announced, closing the inventory ledger. Everything accounted for and described. Brilliant work, Harry said, genuinely impressed. I couldn't have done this without you. Any of you, he added, looking around at Ron, Neville, and Luna, who were arranging artifacts in their designated places. Sure you could have, Ron grinned. Just would have taken you decades instead of months. Luna drifted over, her expression dreamy but her eyes sharp as ever. They're happy to be home, she observed, running a finger along a display case. The artifacts. They recognize this place as their proper sanctuary. Harry nodded, feeling the same resonance. Since activating the preservation protocol, his connection to the collection had deepened. He didn't need the diadem's enhancement to sense the artifact's purposes now, that knowledge had become intuitive. Hogwarts reopens next week, Neville remarked, securing a set of enchanted daggers in their case. McGonagall's done an amazing job getting everything repaired. Headmistress McGonagall now, Hermione corrected with a small smile. Dumbledore had stepped down from his position following the battle, citing a need to correct certain assumptions that had guided his actions for too long. He remained at the castle as an advisor, but leadership had passed to McGonagall, who was implementing reforms with brisk efficiency. Are you really going to display some of the collection at Hogwarts? Ron asked. After everything that happened? Harry nodded. The defensive artifacts belong there. That was their original purpose, to protect the school and its students. He smiled slightly. Besides, it's tradition. Potters have always shared their creations when they were needed. Speaking of sharing, Neville began hesitantly, have you decided about the Ministry's request? Harry's expression hardened slightly. Scrimgeour can keep requesting access to the collection until he's blue in the face. The answer remains no. The Ministry had been persistent in its attempts to study, and potentially control, the artifacts, particularly after word spread about Voldemort's containment. The idea that a family collection could neutralize the darkest wizard in history had sparked both fear and covetousness in government circles. They're not all like Umbridge and Fudge, Hermione pointed out reasonably. Some genuinely want to understand the magic for legitimate research. And they can submit specific requests that I'll consider individually, Harry replied. But blanket access? Never. Luna nodded approvingly. Gatekeepers, not jailers. That's what your family always was. Protecting magic from misuse without hoarding it selfishly. That captured Harry's evolving philosophy perfectly. The more he learned about his ancestors, the more he understood their balanced approach to power, neither hiding it away completely nor wielding it carelessly. A soft chime indicated someone arriving by Fleur. Moments later, Dumbledore stepped into the artifact room, looking more relaxed than Harry had ever seen him. Retirement clearly suited the former headmaster. "Harry," he greeted warmly. "The collection looks magnificent altogether. Your parents would be proud." "Professor," Harry nodded, their relationship having evolved into something cautiously respectful. Not the blind trust of before, but not bitter enmity either. "Did you bring what we discussed?" Dumbledore reached into his robes and withdrew a familiar wand, the Elder Wand that had come to Harry during the final battle. "As promised," he said, offering it. "Though I maintain my concerns about uniting all three Hallows." Harry accepted the wand but immediately placed it in a special case designed for it, alongside his invisibility cloak. The Resurrection Stone, recovered from a gaunt family ring, waited nearby. "They won't be united for use," Harry assured him. "But they belong in the collection, properly documented and protected." Dumbledore seemed relieved. "A wiser choice than I made when I possessed them." "We all make mistakes," Harry said, an olive branch in his tone. "What matters is learning from them." The former headmaster inclined his head in acknowledgement. "Indeed. And speaking of learning, I've brought something else you might find interesting." He produced a small package wrapped in aged parchment. "I found this while clearing my personal effects at Hogwarts. It's the original correspondence between your great-grandfather Fleamont and myself regarding the creation of the Peveril compass." Harry accepted the package with genuine gratitude. "Thank you. Every piece of my family's history matters to me." "I understand that now," Dumbledore said softly. "Far too late, but I do understand." Their conversation was interrupted by Ron calling from the next room. "Harry. Kingsley's fire called. Says there's news about the escaped Death Eaters." Harry excused himself, leaving Dumbledore examining the collection with academic interest. In the communication room, Kingsley Shacklebolt's head sat in green flames, his expression serious. "Potter, we've tracked Bellatrix and the Lestrange brothers to a location in Cornwall. They appear to be attempting some kind of ritual, possibly trying to free Voldemort from his containment." "That's not possible," Harry said with certainty. "The preservation protocol can't be broken from outside." "They don't know that," Kingsley countered. "But whatever they're doing involves dark magic and kidnapped muggles as sacrifices. We're organizing a response team, but given the magical protections they've established." Harry understood immediately. "You need the collection's help." "Just temporarily," Kingsley assured him. "Specific artifacts to counter their defenses, nothing more." Harry glanced back at the room full of his heritage, feeling the weight of responsibility his ancestors had carried for centuries. This was what the collection was truly for, not to sit untouched in display cases, but to be used when needed to protect others. "I'll bring what we need," he decided. "Have your team meet us at the Ministry in an hour." After ending the call, Harry returned to find his friends already preparing, selecting artifacts suited to the mission at hand. "The warning bell," Luna suggested, holding up the small bell Harry had recovered from Diagon Alley. "It can detect dark rituals from miles away." "And these," Neville added, indicating a pair of enchanted bracers. "They shield against blood magic specifically." Harry smiled at their initiative. This was how it should be, the collection used with purpose and care, by people who understood both its power and its responsibility. "My ancestors called themselves Custodes Lucas," he said, strapping on the gauntlet once more. "Guardians of the Light. Time to live up to the family motto." As they prepared for the mission, Harry felt a deep sense of rightness. The artifacts had been created for protection, not domination. Used correctly, they represented not just power, but purpose, a legacy of responsibility handed down through generations of potters who understood that magic at its best was about preservation, not control. The collection was back where it belonged, not locked away in Dumbledore's hidden caches or displayed as mere curiosities, but active in the world, fulfilling the purpose for which each piece had been carefully crafted. And Harry, the last Potter, had finally found his place in that long family tradition. Not as a weapon against darkness, not as a pawn in someone else's game, but as a guardian in his own right, protecting what mattered with the tools his family had created for exactly that purpose. The circle was complete. The legacy reclaimed. And the future, at last, was his to determine. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.